Chapter 58. The only one who can tell me the answer. Is it only me? Kakashi muttered to himself with dull eyes. That's why Dad said that I will only understand after I grow up and experience it for myself? Seeing Kakashi's expression that said, Master, I understand now, Shushi mused to himself. It seems that learning from the masters is still very useful. Anyway, the people around them understood. Rin waved her small fist and said with starry eyes, Garashi, senpai, I understand. I will definitely work hard in the direction of a real medical ninja. Shunyan also had a look of realization. I understand, although I can't directly atone for my sins to Mizuki, just like Garashi bears my mistakes, I can also bear other people's mistakes. Kindness and mistakes can be spread. This is the answer my heart tells me. Seeing Kakashi, Rin and his cousin all understand, Bordered Soil was anxious. I also understand. Metke, who also didn't understand, hurriedly asked, Bordered Soil, what do you understand? Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Bordered Soil almost fainted, but fortunately he saw something and said in a heavy and sad tone, Don't gamble, gambling is harmful. Garashi said with a little dumbfounded, Well, if you all continue to understand, the barbecue will be eaten up. Upon hearing Shushi's words, the people who were still on the lawn hurriedly ran over to him. Bastard, it's already started. Leave some for me. However, they were still a step too late. When they arrived, they could only wait for the second round. Looking at the other students eating with oily faces, Bordered Soil looked envious. Damn, I want to eat. After glancing at Garashi standing in the distance, Bordered Soil felt a little comforted. Forget it, even Garashi-senpai didn't eat. But at that moment, two girls carrying plates full of food surrounded Shushi, one on the left and one on the right. They separated Shushi from the other girls who were about to make a move. Garashi, this is the drumstick I saved for you. Garashi, this is the steak I saved for you. Seeing this situation, Bordered Soil's eyes almost turned into the shape of a lemon. Sure enough, the joys and sorrows between people are not the same. They are all eating barbecue and I can only watch them eat barbecue. At this time, a burst of smoke suddenly burst in the crowded crowd. What happened? Is it an enemy ninja village invasion? Amidst these panicked shouts, a bold and unrestrained laughter was particularly eye-catching. Mount Myaboku, boom. After a scream, a man with two red marks under the corner of his eyes was dragged out by the furious Shinakushina by the collar. You bastard, how dare you scare my guests? Wait, this is just a friendly greeting. Shinakushina actually recovered from her anger. She was worried that she would scare her new friends, but just as she was feeling uneasy, there was a burst of cheers around her. Wow. Shinakushina, Nesan is so cool. Hit him, my meat skewer fell to the ground. Hearing these cheers, Shinakushina's spirit was refreshed, and the flames in her eyes rose again. Wait, I'm not a bad person. Just as the screams were rhythmically echoing through the forest, a gentle voice that was mixed with some annoyance sounded in a timely manner. Shinakushina, please put him down, this is my sensei, one of the Sannin Jiraiya-sama. Sannin? Tsunade looked at the panda eyes in her hand for a while. Mount Myaboku Jiraiya-sama. Although the lines were very high-end, the miserable image of being held in her hand made him look completely different. Sure enough, he's as unreliable as Naruto. Shinakushina disdainfully curled her lips, but still obediently put Jiraiya down. Wow. He's one of the Sannin Jiraiya-sama? I heard that Jiraiya-sama is super invincible. Although his lecherous habits haven't changed, at least Jiraiya, who hasn't embarked on the perverted road of the later generations, is still very respected at this time. After hearing these words of worship, Jiraiya, who was a little dispirited, finally regained a little confidence at this moment. However, these discussions changed as he listened. Is he really Jiraiya-sama? He's obviously the coward who was beaten by Shinakushina-sama and didn't dare to fight back. Did that big brother recognize the wrong person? He's so handsome, how can he have such an ugly sensei? I understand, this uncle must be too ugly to find a girlfriend, so he came to play with us children. Jiraiya's eyes were numb. Is it wrong to like children? How can this be linked to him not being able to find a girlfriend? What's more sad is that he really doesn't have a girlfriend. This inexplicable bleak atmosphere made Minato unable to stand it, and quickly pulled Jiraiya aside. Sensei, I'm really sorry, Shinakushina, I'm just playing with her. Jiraiya pretended to laugh a few times, but in his heart he was depressed. This little girl's appearance is too similar to Tsunade. I was so scared that I forgot to resist. But looking at Minato, who was smiling bitterly, he felt some comfort. Hey, he found a violent girl like Tsunade as his girlfriend, this kid Minato will suffer in the future. Seeing that the lively atmosphere had quieted down, Shushi stood up and said, I forgot to introduce you all. This is Enai-san Namikaze Minato. He's a very powerful ninja, and he's even learned the extremely difficult S-class ninjutsu. As for Jiraiya-sama, there should be many students who have bought Jiraiya-sama's works. Today is a good opportunity to ask for his autograph or ask about the story. And if you're hungry, you can start preparing for the second round of barbecue. Hearing Garashi's words, the originally silent crowd instantly became lively. Is he Shimizu Garashi? Seeing this scene, Jiraiya was secretly surprised. This little guy is really amazing, he suddenly livened up the atmosphere. First, he pointed out the characteristics of Minato and me so that we won't be left out, and then he mentioned the barbecue so that the little guys who are not interested in me and Minato will have something to do. But before he could think about it, Jiraiya was flooded by curious readers. Jiraiya-san, how many demon girlfriends does Naruto, the protagonist of your Legend of Ninja Perseverance, have? Jiraiya-sama, in your Legend of Ninja Perseverance, the heroine Steel Hand and the defeated villain Orochi, are they based on the other two Sannin? Hearing this, Jiraiya's forehead dripped with cold sweat. On the other side, Minato was also surrounded by children. Minato and Aizen, can you show us that again? Well, let's see the power of an S-class ninjutsu. Minato was confused. If he used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu that can teleport half a meter, he will definitely be looked down upon. In the center of the courtyard, Shina-Kushina, as the chef, was surrounded by people. Shina-Kushina-san, you worked hard, this is for you? Yes, this time it's our turn to barbecue. Looking at the pure eyes around her, Shina-Kushina felt as if sand entered her eyes. It was sour and itchy. Everyone was shouting and laughing happily. It was like a beautiful painting. Chapter 59. 2 months after the party, Shina-Kushina's house. Ambush him, listen to me, you can't grab this card. Because I listened to you, I don't know how many times I lost. Hearing the other's disdainful voice, the fox in the sealed space was anxious. This old man has lived for more than 1,000 years, what haven't I seen, how can I lie to you? Shina-Kushina was powerless. I didn't say you lied to me, but your level is really too low. Too many times, too many times, too many times. As if there was an echo echoing in his mind, the fox was aggrieved and closed himself. Outside. Seeing Shina-Kushina's blood-red tentacles suddenly retract, Minato said with some worry, Shina-Kushina, you're not cursing the QB again, are you? After all, it's a combination of ominous and hatred, what if? Suddenly, a red tail jumped out from behind Shina-Kushina, dancing wildly in the air. The tip of the tail pointed to Minato for a while, and pointed to the Naruto rock outside. It seemed very excited. Minato looked at the tail with a stunned face, and after a while he asked awkwardly, Shina-Kushina, what is it saying? The translator, Kushina, had a strange look on her face. QB said that it's not the embodiment of hatred and ominous. It's just that we humans are afraid of its strength, so we put this name on its head. When it fights with other tailed beasts, it deliberately avoids human gathering places. It also said that the most hateful people are the first Sama and Uchiha Madara. It was sleeping at home, but one of them inexplicably took it out and beat it, saying that it was too dangerous. The other one is even more disgusting, putting a layer of blue armor on it, and then went to fight with the first Sama, causing it to be beaten again. Finally, Mito-sama said that the first Sama and Uchiha Madara are gone, and no one in this world can balance the QB, and worried that it will retaliate against humans because of the previous things, so it is simply sealed forever. Minato was speechless. Why did it sound like the strongest tailed beast had such a miserable experience? They were caught and beaten up without doing anything. After being beaten up, they became mounts. After being mounts, they were beaten up again. After being beaten up, they were even imprisoned forever. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to bear this grievance either. In the end, Shina-Kushina was a little embarrassed. She tapped her cheek with her slender index finger. Don't be angry. I'll listen to you 5 out of 10 times in the future. All of a sudden, the chakra aura on the tail surged. Then, the tail split into 9 small tails that swayed in the air. Cold sweat dripped from Minato's forehead. The moment he saw the 9 tails, he almost thought that QB had opened the seal in extreme anger. Shina-Kushina shook her head firmly. No, 6 times at most. Hearing this, one of the 9 little tails hesitantly retracted back. The remaining few waved crazily, indicating that their attitude was very firm. However, this time Shina-Kushina didn't give in. Instead, she slammed the table and shouted, You have to know that you lost my money. If you have money, I will listen to you every time. Whoosh. At this time Shina suddenly burst out from behind her. The tail violently slammed towards Shina head. Minato's pupils contracted violently. Just as he was about to grab Shina and run away, he saw that the tail stopped steadily behind Shina head and swayed slightly. It seemed a little flattering and humble. This is it fanning Shina? Minato was stunned. In the eyes of the world, the tailed beast was more terrible than a natural disaster, but for a little money, it was wagging its tail? No one would believe such a thing even if it was said out loud. Garashi watched the show and suddenly said, Shina, Nei-sen, didn't Kyubi simulate the Bijudama last time and help us complete the structure of Rasengan? For my sake, can you increase the number of times you can use it again? In the original track of history, Rasengan was inspired by Minato's Bijudama. Therefore, after using the love of a friend to influence a certain big orange, Garashi was crazy enough to trick Kyubi into becoming a tool fox. Seeing Garashi's words, Shina reluctantly nodded, but she still reluctantly muttered. Other people have dogs and tear down their houses, but I have a fox. Of course this was a joke. After all, she only had the right to use this big house. Kyubi didn't care about Shina poisonous tongue at all. He even stretched out a tail and patted Garashi's shoulder. Young man, you're very smart. Garashi asked in a timely manner. Shina, listen, can you help me ask Kyubi why they deliberately avoid human gathering places? Normally they don't take the initiative to attack humans, isn't that friendly enough? Shina was stunned. Yes, deliberately avoiding human gathering places, this kind of kindness seems a bit too friendly. Could it be that the bad fox is lying to me? But soon she got a response from Kyubi. He said that this is a promise to an old man, but when I asked him who the old man was, he refused to speak. Garashi lowered his eyelids and secretly thought, Kyubi doesn't know the current situation of Rikudo Sennin? Or has Rikudo Sennin's chakra not appeared even once in the past 1,000 years? He originally thought that Kyubi, who was the most sensitive of chakra, might be able to sense something strange. Seeing that Garashi and Minato didn't respond, Shina couldn't help but speak up for Kyubi. Although he didn't say who the old man was, I don't think he's lying. Minato nodded slightly. He actually didn't think that way either. As Garashi had told them before, growth came from experience, not just time. Kyubi, although it had lived for more than 1,000 years, it had almost never interacted with humans. Its entire life was spent sleeping and fighting. Well, in recent decades, it could also be counted as being beaten and imprisoned. Under such circumstances, he would never believe that Kyubi was a scheming person. Especially after witnessing Kyubi's performance just now, he was even more certain of a guess in his heart. Actually, Kyubi is quite a naive and silly fox. Seeing that the game had stopped, the new gambling monster Kurama waved its tail discontentedly. Then Shina mouth twitched and said, Kyubi wants you to hurry up and shuffle the cards. No one is allowed to leave today or it will destroy the world. Garashi couldn't help but smile. So, we're still playing cards for world peace? Minato sighed sadly. With this troublesome fox, how can he invite Shina out for a date in the future? P.S. Although a settlement has been reached, Shina hasn't unlocked the seal, so she shouldn't be regarded as a perfect Jinchuriki. And even if she is a perfect Jinchuriki, it doesn't matter because Kyubi's perfect Jinchuriki only perceives good and evil, not mind reading. And Garashi does have good intentions. With the belief that everyone is his wings, of course he wants everyone to get better and better. Chapter 60. The next day, Naruto's building. Sandaime, who was dealing with government affairs, suddenly stopped and asked without raising his head. Speak, what's the matter? In the shadow of the room, an Umbu ninja came out. Naruto-sama, ninja school student Shimizu Garashi requests to see you. In order to reflect Konoha's pro-people policy, the Hokage has never refused similar requests. It is precisely because he knows this that he, as an Umbu, didn't directly refuse. Shimizu Garashi? Although he was a little confused, Sandaime still smiled and said, Well, let me see the little genius of Wood Leaf. Yes. The Umbu ninja replied and retreated to let the others let go of the blockade. Soon, Garashi stepped into Naruto's office. Little Garashi, what can I do for you? Sandaime asked with a smile. Uncle Sarutobi, I want to exchange ninjutsu with you. Garashi said politely. Hearing Garashi's kind words, Sandaime's smile became bigger, but he immediately had some doubts. Didn't Orochimaru give you ninjutsu? Garashi shook his head. The ninjutsu from last time, Orochimaru-sama gave it to us. Last time? Sandaime instantly understood Garashi's meaning. He smiled and took out his cigarette. You can already develop ninjutsu? You are worthy of being the genius of Woodleaf. Asma is also good, but compared to you he is really far behind. No, Asma is also very hard-working. That's true. Sandame nodded with relief. Although Asma's character is still a little jumpy compared to before, he is indeed a lot better. Sure enough, the influence of friends is still very important. Sandame raised his hat and slightly leaned forward. Little Garashi, what level of ninjutsu do you want to exchange? Is it a D-class ninjutsu or a C-class ninjutsu? The Sandame pondered in his heart and laughed inwardly. No matter how mature he is, he's still a child who wants to show off. Ninjutsu of this level can be exchanged with the teachers of the school. In his opinion, Garashi should want to show off, so he deliberately came here. However, he did not point it out. It's normal for children to like to show off, they shouldn't kill their enthusiasm. Sandame thought, and then he heard Garashi say, I want to exchange for an A-class ninjutsu, Hashiman Tanku. Oh, the 8 inner hidden gates. The third generation nodded. Then, his eyes widened and 2 streams of white smoke came out of his nose. 8 gates, cough cough. Sandame put the opium pipe away and looked at Garashi's bright eyes. Little Garashi, you can only exchange for ninjutsu of the same level as the one you developed. Garashi blinked innocently. But Brother Minato said that this technique should be at the level of A rank. Minato? The third generation's eyes also looked serious. If it wasn't for the fact that the years after the war were relatively peaceful, Minato should have been qualified to be promoted to Jonin. Even he said so, it seems to be true. Thinking of this, Sandame's heart was a little excited. A-class ninjutsu has great strategic value, but what he values more is that among the people who comprehended the will of fire, there is a genius like Garashi. This kind of talent, even Orochimaru and Minato can't compare with him. Minato is 9 years older than Garashi. If they can do it one after the other, maybe Woodleaf's real heyday can be created by them. After calming himself down, Sandame smiled and said, Little Shushi, show me the technique you've developed. Well, but this technique is actually developed by me and Brother Minato together. Garashi said as a blue chakra ball appeared in his palm. The ball rotated so fast that there was a breeze around his palm. This kind of technique that can change the form to the extreme, for Garashi who has excellent control over chakra, the difficulty is lower than the nature of the technique. More importantly, he also participated in the development of the Rasengan. The derivation process is there. If he can't understand it, then it would be an insult to his IQ. Sandame's attention also moved away from Garashi and focused on the chakra ball in Garashi's palm. With his eyesight, it is not difficult to see the power and potential of this technique. High-speed rotation, high-density chakra compression, can burst out great power in an instant. Irregular chakra flow, can make the enemy's chakra chaotic for a short time. The most important thing is the potential. Sandame's eyes were dignified. Just the form change has reached this level. If the nature change is added, there is no doubt that it will reach the level of arcane. Seeing Sandame in a daze, Garashi asked nervously, Sarutobi-san, has this technique reached the level of A-class? After a few more shouts, the Sandame finally came back to his senses. He looked at Shushi with a burning gaze and laughed heartily. Of course this technique has reached the A level, but do you really intend to give it to the village? Sandame narrowed his eyes and said temptingly, if you keep it for yourself, it can be your unique ninjutsu. Garashi tilted his head and wondered, and then? Sandame was startled and asked again, don't you want your reputation to spread all over the ninja world? Moreover, the fewer people who use this technique, the less information the enemy will have about you. Garashi was silent for a moment and replied with a firm tone, compared with the illusory things like reputation, I would rather increase the village's combat power. As for the information, it is nothing. Medical ninja is the object of everyone's protection, so the stronger everyone is, the safer I will be, right? Hearing Garashi's answer, the smile in Sandame's eyes was so thick that it almost couldn't disappear. What a good child. However, the village will never treat its own people unfairly. If you hand in a ninjutsu, in addition to exchanging a ninjutsu of the same level, you can also collect a part of the contribution points from others when they exchange your ninjutsu. Garashi wasn't surprised by this. Only enough benefits can attract families to hand over ninjutsu, and for the village, contribution points are just a matter of time. Garashi, later you will record the principles of this technique, the method of practice, the flow of chakra, and the hand seals on the scroll. Halfway through his words, Sandame suddenly froze. Wait, Garashi didn't make any hand seals just now, right? Garashi, is this a ninjutsu without hand seals? Seeing Sandame's ferocious face, Garashi weakly replied, "Must there be a hand seal? Then why don't we symbolically put our palms together?" The Sandame almost choked on his own saliva. He looked at Shushi and thought about Asuma, the troublemaker in his family. Originally, he was quite satisfied with Asuma's growth, but now his mood suddenly changed. It's time to let Asuma feel the depth of a father's love. Chapter 61. After calming down, Sandame happily took a puff of his cigarette. "You gave me a big surprise, little Garashi." Garashi shook his head and said, humbly, "In fact, I only gave the inspiration and idea, the rest of the work was done by Nisan." Sandame smiled. Of course he understood the difference between the two. "By the way, what do you want to exchange for?" "Hashiman Tanku." "Hashiman Tanku." Sandame's right hand stopped groping in the drawer. "Why did you suddenly think of exchanging for a taijutsu?" Garashi calmly said the explanation he had prepared. "In fact, Tsunade-sensei told me the importance of taijutsu a long time ago, but I didn't pay much attention to it." Sandame's expression was a bit subtle. In the records of the Umbu department, it was mentioned that Garashi's taijutsu is quite violent and fierce. Even a genin who specializes in taijutsu is not necessarily comparable to him. This kind of practice result, and he didn't pay much attention to it? But, a genius, it's understandable. Sandame nodded slightly. Just like Sarutobi, didn't he learn the fire system and master the other 6 systems? But on the night of Yunin's attack, because my taijutsu was too bad, not only did I cause Shinakushina's sister to go berserk, but I also put Asuma in danger, so I really realized my previous mistakes. If you want to save people, you must first ensure your own safety, and to ensure your own safety, you must have no weaknesses. Sandame's mouth twitched slightly. Isn't this a bit too much? Having no weaknesses means comprehensive development. And the result of comprehensive development is either omnipotence or mediocrity. But, a genius, it's understandable. Sandame comforted himself again. As for why it's Hashiman Tanku, in fact, I heard from Dai that the opening of the Hashiman Tanku can lift the restrictions of the brain and let the body exert 100% of its ability. At that time I was thinking, since the opening of the door can lift the restrictions of the brain, can it be used to inspire inspiration? Ahem. Sandame-sama really choked this time. The techniques that others use to fight, you use them to develop ninjutsu? However, geniuses... No, even geniuses can't understand this. Even I, Sarutobi, wouldn't dare to play like this. Thinking of this, Sandame organized his words. Opening the door is very dangerous. At least you can't do that now. Garashi said dejectedly, I know. The Sandame was still a little worried, so he added, unless you can reach the level of the first generation in the future, don't try it, understand? At the very least, one must have an immortal body as a prerequisite? Tisk, it's really not easy for someone like me to raise my comprehension ability. After Garashi sighed in his heart, he knew when to stop. He nodded and said, Uncle Yuanfei, I won't take the risk. Sandame nodded. Then do you want to change to another technique? Garashi was silent for a moment, then he shook his head and said, No, I don't need any other techniques right now. Moreover, I also want to exchange for the Hashiman Tanku. I want to practice genjutsu and medical ninjutsu when I reach a bottleneck so I can get inspiration by practicing taijutsu. Sandame knocked on the table with his opium pipe. The essence of any technique is inseparable from the chakra, hand seals, meridians, nature changes, shape changes, and so on. In theory, what you said can be done. Do you want to ask why the teachers in the school never talked about this with you? I don't want to ask. It's because of the difference, isn't it? Shushi muttered under his breath. Sandame took a puff of his cigarette and said, The differences between people do exist. Some people can't even remember all 12 handprints, let alone the combination of the handprints. Under such circumstances, it's impossible for them to comprehend the cultivation by analogy. Even if they're geniuses, it's very difficult for them to study other techniques. Only a few people can really set foot in this field. Seeing the reserved look in Sandame's eyes, Shushi suddenly understood why Sandame had said so much nonsense. The first dame's would release, the second Naruto's forbidden technique, and the third dame's ninjutsu professor was proficient in 7 attributes. This is actually a very powerful achievement, but only a few people can realize it. He occasionally wants to listen to flattery. No wonder Asuma always said that his father is cold on the outside. Thinking of this, Garashi exclaimed. So it's so difficult? Did anyone in Woodleaf do it? Sandame said with a smile. Aha, this old man has a little experience in this field. I heard from the adults that you can use 7 attributes of ninjutsu. Are you proficient in every attribute? Almost. At least I can use all of Woodleaf's A-level ninjutsu. Embezzlement? Garashi's heart fiercely flashed this thought, then he quickly blamed himself. How can I think like this? Naruto-sama obviously wanted to protect Woodleaf, so he took the risk to practice the ninjutsu in the Book of Seals. So, if I become Naruto in the future, I must learn from Sandaime. Thinking of this, Garashi said excitedly. Amazing, even the first dame couldn't do this, right? Uncle Sarutobi, can you guide me in this field? Sandaime smiled brightly. I can only tell you some of my own experience, such as the similarities and differences between different systems of jutsu, chakra and hand seals, or the differences in their shape and nature changes. As for the rest, you can only rely on yourself to explore. After bragging, Sandaime finally remembered the business, coughed, and took out the Book of Seals from the drawer. With the experience of exchanging for the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, you should be more familiar with the process. After recording the Hashiman Tanku, I will apply the sealing jutsu on you. Garashi naturally understood. If there was no sealing jutsu, the important strategic resources of the village would be leaked. Understanding was one thing, but the feeling of having a seal placed on him was still very unpleasant. Stepping out of the Naruto building, it was already dusk. Looking at the reflection of the building, Shushi muttered to himself, my talent lies in learning, summarizing, and even innovating. It's not that I'm not talented, it's just that the cost-performance ratio of developing a technique is too low. With the idea I provided, Kyuubi's demonstration, and Minato's talent, it still took him 2 months to develop Rasengan. And in the manga, it even took him 3 years to complete this technique. If I waste my time on this, at most I'll reach the level of Naruto, and it's impossible to achieve my goal. My ambition is too big, but my current ability is not enough to support my ambition. If I want to do this, well, it seems that I'm a bit impetuous, thinking too far will make people unable to see the road under their feet. Garashi took a deep breath, retracted his gaze, suppressed his ambition, and walked away. The next step should be the Book of Seals, right? Although I have some ideas, there are still a lot of restrictions if I want to implement it. Maybe it's time to slow down a little. At the same time, in Naruto's office, Sandaime was looking at the Book of Seals on the side. Using the Hashiman Tanku to remove the restrictions of the brain to stimulate inspiration? What a bold and interesting idea. Perhaps it's this creative thinking that allowed him to develop Rasengan at this age. But, is this really useful? Well, anyway, the first 3 gates are safe areas, so it's better to try it. For the safety of the village, it's worth the risk. Sandaime put his right hand on the crystal ball. This time, I must successfully improve the telescope jutsu. Chapter 62. Under the candlelight, a sleepy conversation could be heard. Jiraiya-sensei? There's something I'd like to ask Jiraiya-sama for help. That's really troublesome. Ever since Sensei's Legend of the Counterattack ended? Wait, didn't you say that it was only halfway through the story? It seems that after Tsunade-sama found out about some of the plot in the book, she chased Sensei for 10 blocks. Sensei was so scared that he quickly ended the book. Listening to their meaningless conversation, Shina Kushina's voice came from the side. If you don't do something, Kurama is going to go berserk. Minato squinted his eyes sleepily and smiled bitterly. It's already so late, do you still want to continue? Even Shushi felt a sense of helplessness. He thought to himself that he should quickly develop a few 2-player games and push the blame to Minato. Shina Kushina translated with a strange expression. Kurama said that it can share chakra with you and ensure that you'll be energized and won't feel sleepy at night. It also said that you two are genius ninjas, so you should quickly develop a ninjutsu that doesn't need to sleep, or an independent consciousness clone technique that can play cards with it. After that, Kyuubi stretched out his tail and slapped Garashi and Minato. In an instant, a powerful force rushed into their bodies. For Kyuubi's almost infinite chakra, this amount of chakra was nothing. But for the two who were not proficient in chakra, this force almost made them explode. This power. Even Garashi couldn't calm down. He was still thinking about how to get more fox fur from Kyuubi, but he didn't expect that Kyuubi would give up without doing anything. It's a pity that I haven't learned the Yin seal, otherwise I could store this power. But it's enough to expand my chakra capacity. After noticing that his chakra capacity was slightly expanded, Garashi's heart was filled with a strong sense of joy. Except for some natural chakra monsters, normal people can only rely on daily practice to increase the upper limit of their chakra capacity. It's just like in a dense jungle, relying on daily pruning and cutting to open a narrow path. But Kyuubi's power is like a road roller in the jungle. After opening up a new path, it will repair the road that might be crushed. For ordinary people, This is actually a very dangerous thing. If they're not careful, their meridians may be damaged to a certain extent. However, for Shushi, the benefits of doing so far outweighed the risks. After all, he was confident that he would be able to repair Kyubi's meridians, so this simple level of damage. Although it's because I have too little chakra, the effect is obvious, but this is enough. Compared to those techniques that can be developed by talent and methods, the limitations of my body's aptitude is my biggest obstacle. Thinking of this, Garashi, guiltily, withdrew the idea of developing a two-person game. Tomorrow I'll start preparing for a new three-person game. Well, I'll start with caring for the empty nest fox. On the other hand, Minato's face was red from the sudden huge power, and it took a while before he slowly calmed down. Seeing that Kyubi was still wagging her tail, Minato had no choice but to compromise. Okay, a pair of 6. Minato explained to Garashi as he played his cards. Sensei wants to write a new book, but because he doesn't have any ideas, he has been collecting materials on the streets these days. A pair of 10. Hearing this, Garashi had an ominous feeling in his heart. Collecting materials? Ace bomb. After Shina Kushina finished playing her cards, she was stunned and immediately went berserk. Idiot, how can you play an ace bomb at the beginning of the game? Seeing that Shina Kushina and Kyubi were quarreling again, Minato also took the time to explain to Garashi. It seems that Tsunade-sama said that Sensei's books are trash that can't be sold, then Sensei swore that he must write a best-selling book that everyone would like to read. So, Sensei has been experiencing life on the streets these days, wanting to know what topics are the most popular. If you want to find Sensei, you can only try your luck on the streets. Shushi sighed helplessly. Could it be that he had sped up the process of a certain event? That would be a serious sin. But the good news was that he roughly knew where to find Jiraiya. The next day, outside the Woodleaf Women's Bathhouse, a handsome ninja squatted in the grass with a complicated look in his eyes, fighting in his mind. As a great writer, it's reasonable to look for materials in life with an eye that's good at finding beauty. Jiraiya, wait, did you forget that you were seriously injured by Tsunade when you peeked at the women's bathhouse? No, I want to dedicate myself to art. Nothing can stop an author's determination to create. But if I'm found out, I won't be able to find a woman in the future, right? Forget it, if I can't find a woman, then so be it. Women will only affect the speed of my hand seals. Thinking of this, the handsome ninja walked valiantly to the artist's battlefield, with high spirits. But at this moment, a question came from the grass. Jiraiya, Sama, why did you change into Orochimaru-sama's appearance? The handsome ninja stopped in his tracks and turned his head stiffly. I'm Orochimaru. Listen, hissed. Looking at Orochimaru sticking out his tongue in a wretched manner, Garashi sighed helplessly. Jiraiya, Sama, a person's face and body can change, but their eyes and temperament can't. As expected, even Orochimaru's wretched face can't hide my melancholy eyes and noble temperament. Orochimaru laughed and changed back into Jiraiya's appearance. Jiraiya, Sama, were you peeking at someone else's bathhouse? Garashi quietly watched the ninja's performance and then killed him with a single blow. Ahem. Jiraiya, who was laughing loudly, suddenly choked as if he was going to cough out his lungs. After a while, he calmed down and shouted with his eyes wide open. Collecting material can't be counted as peeping. Can the author's business be counted as peeping? It doesn't count? Garashi tilted his head in confusion. Then I'll go back and ask Tsunade-sensei. Seeing Garashi turn around and leave, Jiraiya's legs almost gave out. He hurriedly pulled Garashi back. Don't bother Tsunade-sensei with such a small matter. With that, he hurriedly changed the topic. By the way, what are you doing here? Garashi said without hesitation. I'm here to see Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya's eyes widened. How did you know I'm here? Don't tell me the old man's telescope technique has become stronger again. Jiraiya suddenly felt a little depressed. Don't tell me I have to set up a barrier to go to the bathroom in the future? Garashi blinked and replied, Tsunade-sensei said that if you want to see me, you can go to the bathhouse more often. Tsunade, this violent woman, knows so much about me. Jiraiya panicked at first, but soon he began to fantasize. She pays so much attention to me. Don't tell me she likes me? Chapter 63. Could it be that she tried so hard to kill me before, not because I wrote her as the heroine, but because I didn't write enough? Then my next book, Just as Jiraiya's imagination was running wild, Garashi suddenly asked, Jiraiya, Sama, do you like Tsunade-sensei? Jiraiya was so scared that he even spat out his saliva. He looked at Garashi in horror and waved his hand. How could I like that violent woman? Ah ha 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 ha, this is not funny at all. Looking at Jiraiya's flustered look, Garashi sighed in his heart. It seems that I have to work part-time as a neighborhood committee ant. Garashi was very clear that lust was a man's nature. Especially for a veteran like Jiraiya, he couldn't be persuaded or beaten to change his mind. There were only two ways to fundamentally cut off the appearance of those bad books. One was to castrate him. The second was to put shackles on this free and unrestrained man. Thinking of this, Garashi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In order to prevent high-quality tools like Kakashi from being poisoned, I really went through a lot of trouble. Seeing Shueishi's silence, Jiraiya felt a little guilty. Actually, I'm not saying that Tsunade isn't good. It's just that I can't stop. I'm a wanderer and I will only stop when I'm about to die. Garashi blinked. Even when Tsunade-sensei is hurt? Jiraiya glared and shouted subconsciously, who dares? Shushi chuckled meaningfully. Lungzi? Seeing Garashi's strange gaze, Jiraiya blushed and pretended to cough twice. Haha, who can bully her? Garashi sighed. If it was the previous Tsunade-sensei, of course it wouldn't be a problem, but Jiraiya-sama, you should also know sensei's current situation, right? Jiraiya rubbed his hands and smiled. Isn't there Sarutobi-sensei and Orochimaru? Shushi looked straight at Jiraiya. Seeing Jiraiya's guilty conscience, Shushi said, well, I'll pretend that you don't know anything. I can feel that sensei wants to leave the village. If sensei's hemophobia is known by the enemy ninja village, they will definitely not miss this opportunity. Jiraiya was silent for a long time and finally he smiled bitterly. You want to push Tsunade to me? Garashi smiled softly. I just think that if it's you, Jiraiya-sama, you should be able to wake sensei up from that nightmare. Hearing Garashi mention the nightmare, Jiraiya pinched his eyebrows, and then sat on the grass next to him in a very free and easy posture. Come and sit down. Garashi looked like a good boy and sat opposite Jiraiya. Actually, Tsunade used to have a lover, his name is Kato Duan, he is… I know. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Tsunade even told you this? Garashi shook his head. I know from Shizune. Oh, the little girl beside Tsunade. Jiraiya said, and suddenly his facial muscles twitched. Wait, you told me so much, don't tell me you want me to be your little girlfriend's bodyguard. Garashi said helplessly, Jiraiya-sama, what are you talking about? I'm only 6 years old. Jiraiya squinted his eyes. You know you're only 6 years old, right? You're acting like an emotional expert. Garashi spread his hands. Although it may be rude to say this, Jiraiya-sama, you probably haven't talked to girls as much as I have, right? Gotcha. Jiraiya covered his chest, feeling as if something cracked here. Please try to recall how many girls have spoken to you for more than 10 sentences? Asked Soishi, seizing the opportunity to ask. Jiraiya opened his mouth blankly. Obviously, he already knew the answer in his heart. Not to mention 10 sentences, the only girl who has spoken to me more than 3 sentences seems to be Tsunade, right? Thinking of this, Jiraiya suddenly woke up. Don't I even have a choice in this life? Seeing Jiraiya's worried look, Garashi muttered in his heart, there really isn't anyone who has spoken more than 10 sentences, I was going to set it at 30 sentences. Jiraiya hesitated for a while and said, tell me, what is the position of broken in Tsunade's heart? It should be very high, after all, memories will beautify a person's image. Jiraiya's old face fell. Then I'd better, Garashi said with some disappointment. What's the point of arguing with a dead person? Or do you want Tsunade-sensei to be the kind of person who will forget her memories? Jiraiya suddenly realized, yes, if Tsunade really forgot the past, would she still be the Tsunade he knew? Seeing that the time was right, Garashi launched the final blow. Let me remind you again, although there are not many girls who have spoken to you, there are many men who want to communicate with Tsunade-sensei. Jiraiya's face darkened, but he had to admit that as long as she was not afraid of domestic violence, Tsunade was indeed much more popular than him. Thinking of this, Jiraiya couldn't hold back anymore. No, it seems that this sage has to take the initiative to attack. Do you want to give her something? But I don't seem to have anything to give her. Give her a toad? Or give her my autograph book? Seeing that Jiraiya was eager to die, Garashi quickly stopped him. Jiraiya-sama, I still have something to ask you for help. During this time, you can calm down and think about it. Jiraiya pondered and nodded. You're right, I should think about it. Tell me, what do you want? I always feel that he will die miserably. Garashi sighed and said, I hope you can give me a few drops of Mount Miyaboku's toad oil. Well, that's easy. Jiraiya casually agreed but quickly reacted. Wait, Tsunade wants you to learn senjutsu? That's too reckless with your current state. Jiraiya-sama, you misunderstood. Garashi said, it's not me who wants to use it. It's not you? Jiraiya was stunned and immediately showed a lascivious smile. Could it be that Tsunade wants to learn the Shikatsu Forest Senjutsu? I wonder what she looks like when she transforms? Seeing that even Jiraiya thought of the uniform temptation, Shushi hurriedly explained, it's a classmate of mine. One part of his meridians is almost completely broken. It's very difficult to repair it. Only with the most gentle energy can it be possible to reconnect his broken meridians. Gentle? Jiraiya's face was serious, but do you know that the extreme of gentleness is violence? Or, natural energy is too gentle. Once you come in contact with it, you and nature will truly become one. Chapter 64. Garashi's expression remained unchanged as he nodded. Tsunade-sensei has already told me about the risks involved. Jiraiya asked seriously, then do you still plan to continue? Garashi did not answer directly but talked about something else. I heard from Tsunade-sensei that there are two prerequisites for practicing senjutsu. One is a large number of chakra, and the other is a strong perseverance that never gives up. Although he did not understand the meaning of Garashi's words, Jiraiya still followed his words. This is only the threshold to understand natural energy. The subsequent refinement of chakra requires extremely fine control of chakra and strong spiritual control. However, in your current situation, you really only need to consider these 2 points. Garashi nodded. A large number of chakra is easy. I just need to borrow Kyubi's chakra from Shina Kushina-san. After the incident that night, Kyubi's Jinchuriki was no longer a secret among the higher-ups. Jiraiya was surprised. Wait, that little girl can already use Kyubi's power skillfully? Garashi smiled slightly. Yes, maybe Kyubi and Shina Kushina-san's personality are more compatible. It's over, not only is her personality like Tsunade's, even her strength is about to catch up. Jiraiya thought with some schadenfreude, Minato, this kid, is finally about to experience the bitterness of a sensei. Maybe, it's time to teach him my reserved lesson of avoiding being hunted down. Seeing Jiraiya fall into fantasy, Garashi did not care and continued, although the borrowed power is not my own, I'm not going to practice senjutsu. If it's just resisting the erosion of natural energy, I should be able to do it. Jiraiya nodded slightly. The nature of natural energy is too strong. It's like dripping paint into water. If the amount of water is too little, it will instantly assimilate and change color. And Kyubi's power is used to resist this process. But you have to understand that the strength of nature energy lies not only in the instant of assimilation when it invades the body, but also in the subtle changes after that. If you don't have a strong enough will, you won't be able to avoid being devoured by nature energy. Garashi naturally understood that this was not an exaggeration. If natural energy could be controlled so easily, immortal arts would have long become the mainstream of this world. Although I'm very confident in my own willpower, this isn't my problem alone. To be on the safe side, I'd like to ask Lord Jiraiya to test both me and Shuei Mu. Jiraiya scratched his head. It seems that Tsunade also told you about Fukasaku-sama. Indeed, Fukasaku-sama's dog-beating stick can beat natural energy out of your body. However, it can only be done before you undergo surgery. Garashi nodded seriously. That's enough. Then I'll have to trouble you, Lord Jiraiya. Wait, I have another condition. Jiraiya's eyes rippled as he hugged Garashi and laughed. As long as it's something I can do, I'll do my best. Garashi did not make any promises. I saw it at the last gathering. Those little girls all wanted to surround you. Forget about them, but even that violent big-breasted Tsunade and that violent little pepper Shina Kushina were so nice to you. There must be some trick to it, right? Quick, tell me, how do you please women? Jiraiya's eyes lit up. Only in this aspect he almost worshipped Garashi. This was the treatment he dreamed of. Garashi unconsciously touched his face and asked blankly, do I need to please women for this kind of thing? The smile on Jiraiya's face gradually disappeared, and he immediately asked with a ferocious expression, do you mean that you don't have to do anything and there will be more than a dozen girls surrounding you? Garashi shook his head, of course not. Jiraiya felt a little comforted, and then he heard Garashi say in a matter-of-fact tone, at least you have to reject more than half of the girls, so there will only be a dozen left. Jiraiya. Then Garashi saw Jiraiya's figure getting shorter and shorter. Finally, his whole body bent forward and knelt on the ground. The next day would leave hospital. Jiraiya? Ah? I'm here. Seeing that Jiraiya had been giggling since they met today, Tsunade said helplessly, If you're still angry about what happened last time, okay, I apologize. I really shouldn't have said that your books are trash. But you have to remember it. Next time you dare to write in your books. Seeing that Tsunade mentioned the books so quickly, Jiraiya winked and said, "You don't have to say it, hee, I understand." What's with this wretched giggle? Tsunade's mouth twitched. She felt that Jiraiya was not right today. Forget it, this guy doesn't feel right in the first place. Thinking of this, Tsunade looked to the side. Shushi, are you ready? Garashi clenched his fist hard, and the orange-red chakra almost overflowed from between his fingers. I feel very good now and I can start the trial at any time. Behind him, Mizuki looked at Garashi with infinite longing in his eyes. Two Sannin, and this incomparably powerful Bijou chakra, such a luxurious lineup. Naturally he did not have such a big face. The only reason they're here is because of Shushi. Therefore, Mizuki did not have the slightest idea of gratitude in his heart. Only Garashi was the only light he could see. Tsunade looked over Garashi. About the Jinchuriki, we will set a seal for you later, I hope you can understand. Mizuki nodded indifferently, I know. Seeing that everything was ready, Jiraiya began to summon. Not long after, a toad-like old man with a wooden stick in his hand and a cloak, who looked a little thin and old, appeared in front of everyone. Boss, I'll have to trouble you again this time. Jiraiya greeted respectfully. It's good to come out occasionally, but I have to go back before dinner, otherwise the children's mother will be angry. Fukasaku Sennin's tone was peaceful, and he did not mind being summoned. Jiraiya smiled, it won't take too long, I just want to ask you to test the qualifications of the two children. Garashi and Mizuki, who had already known the other party's information from Jiraiya, hurriedly saluted, Fukasaku-sama, please. Fukasaku Sennin knocked on the ground with a wooden stick, squinted his eyes and looked a little unhappy. Jiraiya, are you kidding me? Such a small child, even chakra is not. This powerful chakra aura is. Without anyone's reminder, he turned his eyes to Shinakushina. It turned out to be that guy, Tisuke. It seems that this old guy is really outdated, there is such a way. Chapter 65. But after looking at them for a while, he shook his head. External forces can only be used as a reference. If it's not your own strength, you can't practice senjutsu. Jiraiya hurriedly explained, the two of them are not trying to practice senjutsu. They are planning to use natural energy to complete a surgery. Surgery? The thoughts of young people are getting more and more incomprehensible. Fukasaku Sennin was amazed and then asked, tell me, what do you want me to do? You just need to knock out the natural energy in their bodies when they show signs of frog transformation. That's easy. Seeing that Fukasaku Sennin agreed, Jiraiya took out a small bottle containing a golden liquid. This is the toad oil from Mount Mayaboku. Can help you sense natural energy. What you have to do is to ensure that you will not be eroded by natural energy with your own beliefs and perseverance. Fukasaku Sennin reminded, once the toad oil leaves the environment of Mount Mayaboku, it will quickly vaporize. Even with my simulated environment, it will not take more than 5 minutes. Seeing that the two children's expressions were normal, Jiraiya nodded secretly and carefully wiped the toad oil on their hands. The rest of the people had heard about the horror of natural energy from Jiraiya. When they saw the golden liquid dripping on Garashi's hand, their breathing unconsciously quickened. However, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 1 minute passed, not to mention Garashi, even Mizuki was well maintained. Seeing that everyone was looking at him strangely, Jiraiya shook the small bottle and muttered, it doesn't make sense. Even the toad oil from Mount Mayaboku will expire? Just as Jiraiya was thinking about whether he should try it himself, Fukasaku Sennin, who was standing on the bedside table, jumped up and hit Mizuki, who was showing signs of frog transformation, back to normal. 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Tsunade took the initiative to report the time. It's just the first try and he can hold on for 2 minutes. How rare. However, the other child is even more terrifying. He is perfectly compatible with the profound meaning of stillness. Fukasaku Sennin was also extremely shocked. Even in his more than 800 years of experience, he had almost never seen such a powerful talent. Time passed little by little. Just as the effect of the toad oil was gradually dissipating, Fukasaku Sennin suddenly said, success, he can sense the natural energy. 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Jiraiya couldn't believe his eyes when he reported the time. The first time he came into contact with nature energy, not only was he not corroded by it, he even managed to sense it within 5 minutes. It's gone. Garashi opened his eyes and muttered, only 13 seconds? Seeing that Garashi was still not satisfied, Jiraiya shouted frantically, "Do you know that this result is already ridiculous? Even back then, back then I was just a little bit worse than you." "I don't know." Garashi shook his head honestly, his eyes resolute. "But I know one thing. The natural energy that I've sensed in these 13 seconds is definitely not enough for surgery. Are you still thinking of your companions at this time?" Jiraiya's frantic expression froze, and he patted Garashi's shoulder with some emotion. "Perhaps it's this belief that allowed you to surpass us." Shina Kushina was also relieved. "Speaking of surgery, Garashi, how long will it take for you to complete the surgery?" "About 10 minutes. Garashi muttered. "However, the 3 parts that need natural energy to repair should only take 3 minutes. In other words, you need to comprehend the natural energy within 2 minutes." Tsunade looked at Minato. "And him, you need to be free from the erosion of natural energy within 3 minutes. Otherwise, there's no way for Fukasaku-sama to expel the natural energy during the surgery." Garashi's expression was solemn. "That's not enough. The time limit is too much. It's best to leave half a minute of safety. This is clearly my business. Even I only need to stop at the first stage without being eroded. But Garashi wants to take the risk to try the second stage of natural energy." Mizuki's heart was moved, and his gaze became firm and sharp. "I will definitely do it." Jiraiya looked at Fukasaku Senin. "Boss, I may have to trouble you with these 2 children." Fukasaku Senin smiled and waved the wooden stick. "It's rare to meet 2 children who have the talent to practice senjutsu. It's not bad to play with them." Half a day later, the sky gradually darkened. At this time, Garashi and Minato had already entered the operating room. Outside. It's hard to imagine that children have such strong perseverance. If it weren't for the restriction of chakra, I'm afraid they would be able to practice senjutsu by now. Fukasaku Senin exclaimed as he looked at the operating room. "Fukasaku-sama, are you saying that in a few years when their bodies grow up, they will be qualified to practice senjutsu?" Minato asked in surprise. Fukasaku Senin nodded and looked to the side. "Little Jiraiya, do you plan to let the child named Garashi practice senjutsu?" Jiraiya awkwardly touched his head. "Ah, that child is not my disciple." Seeing Jiraiya's gaze drifting to Tsunade, Fukasaku Senin understood. "Oh, Shikatsu Linbai picked up a good seedling." Minato asked, "What about the child named Mizuki? Although his talent is not as good as Garashi, he should be qualified to practice senjutsu, right?" However, the man and the frog were strangely silent. After a while, Jiraiya sighed. "I saw a very scary light in that child's eyes. If he learns Sage Mode, I don't know whether it's good or bad." Fukasaku Senin nodded. "The child named Garashi, his Jing, is quiet and peaceful. But Mizuki, his Jing, is silent and indifferent. This kind of temperament is not suitable to learn senjutsu of Mount Mayaboku." "Ah? Is that so?" Minato was a little confused. He was still too inexperienced. He couldn't be as shrewd as the 2 beside him. In fact, even if we don't consider this point, the possibility of him wanting to practice senjutsu is very slim. Fukasaku Senin shook his head helplessly. Compared to a real genius, his physical aptitude is too poor. With his speed of refining chakra, he may not be able to meet the amount of chakra required to practice senjutsu in 10 years. "That's indeed a pity." Minato sighed. A person like him wouldn't hold a grudge against Mizuki just because of a few words. At this moment, the sound of the door opening came from the operating room. Everyone turned their heads and saw Garashi and Tsunade walking out side by side. Garashi rarely teased, "Minato, don't you think the sun is particularly bright today?" "Of course it's because I'm standing next to the sun." Looking at Shueishi's heartfelt smile, Shueimu held back the tears at the corners of his eyes and laughed along with Shueisha. "Yes, it's really a brilliant sun." Chapter 66. The next day early in the morning. When someone walked into the classroom, cheers instantly resounded throughout the campus. "Wow, it's Mizuki. Mizuki is back. Our second year is finally complete." Looking at the bright smiles around him, Mizuki's heart was not moved, but he secretly thought, "If I'm too cold, it will make things difficult for Garashi. But what should I do now? If it's Garashi, what will he do?" Thinking of this, Mizuki forced a smile. Thank you everyone." Seeing this scene, everyone was incomparably shocked. Mizuki smiled. He can smile. Haha, Mizuki has changed a lot. Although his smile is a bit ugly, it's better than having a cold face. "Oh right, Mizuki, tell us how you cured him." Mizuki was already bored, but hearing this, his spirit suddenly rose. You may not know, but Garashi for me, oh, wow. Turning into a frog, is it that exciting? Hearing this burst of exclamations, Asuma was a bit jealous and looked at Garashi with resentful eyes. That's too much, you didn't even bring me along. Ibixi as usual said with a poisonous tongue. Why would I bring you along? To let those doctors practice? Shizen's eyes flashed. Garashi-kun is really amazing, he actually completed such a super difficult surgery. Garashi was a bit helpless. It's still too dangerous. If it wasn't for Mizuki's insistence, I actually wanted to wait until I'm more confident to perform the surgery. Red bit her lower lip and sighed softly. Mizuki doesn't want to fall too far behind us. Garashi leaned back in his chair and stretched his body in a happy mood. Anyway, it's a happy ending. But at this moment, the class's little smart, Takatani Ryosuke rushed in. Big news, Hatake Kakashi from the first year applied for graduation. And he even said that he wants to challenge the class leader again. Hearing this, the whole class was in an uproar. Graduation challenge, what is that 1-second guy trying to do? Does he think that the humiliation from last time wasn't enough? At this time, Takatani Ryosuke shook his head. You don't know yet, but last night, Hatake Kakashi's father committed suicide at home. In the underground chamber of Gen, he actually committed suicide. Danzo raised his eyebrows and immediately sneered. What a waste, such a person deserves to be a ninja? The black-robed dragon horse echoed coldly. Perhaps it's because the difference between a hero and a sinner is too great. That's why I said that Yuan Fei's weak policies are simply poisonous. Danzo said with disdain. A real ninja shouldn't be bound by unnecessary emotions. Even if he is misunderstood by everyone, he should unswervingly implement his own ninja path. Ryoma Aburame's cold eyes flashed with a trace of heat. Ninjas shouldn't appear under the sun. Only the route, led by Danzo-sama, is the true home of a ninja. Danzo accepted the compliment without any hesitation, turned around and walked deeper into the darkness. Tell the root members to withdraw temporarily. With my understanding of Sarutobi the Deceiver, he will soon use this as an excuse to attack us. At the same time in Naruto's office, the masked Umbu ninja Mammoth was reporting to Sandame. Sandame's face was sad. Alas, I killed Tsukumo. Tsukumo's acceptance is higher, so this is still Tsukumo's name. Mammoth said with some excitement. Naruto-sama, please don't blame yourself too much. Tsukumo's death was entirely due to his own cowardice. Sandame smiled bitterly. Cowardice, is that how you see him? Mammoth nodded firmly. It's just a rumor, it's not worth paying attention to. Moreover, the mistake he made, he should try to make up for it. What kind of ninja would use suicide to escape reality? Such a cowardly and incompetent person is not worthy of Naruto-sama's grief. Sandame took a puff of his cigarette and sighed. He's not a coward, he's stronger and braver than anyone else. Mammoth was surprised. Naruto-sama, you? Sandame looked out of the window with his hands behind his back. He's too smart but at the same time too kind. With his intelligence, it's impossible for him not to see the trap set by Danzo, but for his companions who wanted to harm him, he willingly jumped into the trap. You want to harm him? Mammoth was shocked, but he immediately woke up. Indeed, with the strength of Konoha's White Fang, the success rate of the mission alone would be higher. I thought that the village wanted him to train new people. Sandame shook his head. Training new people won't let them perform difficult tasks. Mammoth was surprised again. No wonder he came back from the mission in the past 2 months with injuries. It turned out that he used his own strength to complete the mission? Sandame spat out a thick smoke. But even a powerful ninja like him can't complete the mission without someone dragging him down every time. So that's how it is, I understand. Mammoth sighed with regret. The mission failed, and the ninjas he rescued are still maliciously slandering him, making him feel desperate. You still don't understand, Mammoth? The reason he committed suicide is because of me. How could it be you? You should have heard of it, right? The rumor that I want Tsukumo to be the fourth dame. Yes, I heard that you want him to be with Orochimaru-sama. In fact, I was more optimistic about Tsukumo at first. Sandame sighed again, but Danzo's test also made me see one thing, that is, Tsukumo is too kind. Mammoth nodded subconsciously. Even from a bystander's point of view, he felt that Tsukumo was too kind. I'm not saying that it's not good, but as Naruto, it's not good. Naruto is the future of the village, and his excessive kindness will make him make the wrong decision at the most critical moment. For the sake of the village, I can only sit back and watch him make a mistake, and then let him disappear from everyone's sight. Mammoth nodded. Many people in the village were very optimistic about Tsukumo, and if it wasn't for Tsukumo's own mistake, even Naruto-sama would be very passive. But since Tsukumo is so kind, he should be able to understand your painstaking efforts. Why did he make such an extreme move? Sandame's eyes were a lot more lonely. If I'm not wrong, he should think that Danzo and I are suppressing him, and in order to prevent those who support him from breaking with the village, he made this decision. Is that the truth? Mammoth sighed with regret. If he could have asked Naruto-sama, this misunderstanding wouldn't have happened. He won't come to me because Orochimaru is also involved. Ah? What? Sandame smiled bitterly. He may think that Orochimaru represents my will, and that I'm doing this to pave the way for Orochimaru. Mammoth couldn't believe it. How could Orochimaru-sama? Ridiculous, isn't it? Even his own disciple doesn't recognize me as his teacher. Mammoth was silent and didn't speak. Sandame waved his hand. Go, get rid of those rumors, at least let Tsukumo die as a hero. Mammoth nodded and turned to leave, but Sandame's voice came from behind. Also, make sure that Root knows their place. Chapter 67. In the evening, the children didn't go home after school, but went to the back of the mountain in groups of 2 or 3. Hatake Kakashi's challenge was a rare tonic in their dull school life. Have you heard? Kakashi has already passed the graduation application during the day. Wow. Is he an official ninja now? That's not important at all, okay? What's important is that he graduated early in his first year of school. This has completely broken the school's record. What a monster. This record is probably impossible to be broken in the future. Listening to the discussions around them, Obito and the others felt that it was unreal. Yesterday they were still classmates, but today they graduated. Is this a genius? Kakashi, that guy. Bordered Soil's mood was a little low. He had to admit that being in the same class with such a monster was too much of a blow. Don't be too discouraged. Shunin patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. You see, I have awakened my Sharingan and studied for a few more years, but I still can't even see Garashi's back. Ah. Bordered Soil's mouth twitched. Awakening my Sharingan is useless. This makes me even more desperate. Mekke was excited. I don't know who will win this battle? Bordered Soil said without hesitation. Of course it will be Garashi-senpai. However, this time there were different voices around them. It's really hard to say this time. You don't know yet. Hatake Kakashi has already learned A-level ninjutsu. Hearing the person next to him say this, Bordered Soil was helpless. I am his classmate, I know this better than you, and Kakashi told me that he had already learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu before the last battle. The person next to him was stunned at first, then immediately exclaimed, Amazing! Hatake classmate has already learned such a powerful ninjutsu before entering the school? Bordered Soil was dumbfounded. What I mean is, even if he knows A-level ninjutsu, he still lost to Garashi-senpai. The man waved his hand nonchalantly. That's because Hatake was too careless. If he had used that technique in advance, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Seeing the other parties, you don't understand Kakashi at all. Look, Bordered Soil could only doubt himself. In the distance, Garashi was already quietly waiting. Asuma asked, Garashi, how many seconds do you plan to finish the battle this time? Garashi shook his head solemnly. You think too highly of me. This time it might be a tough battle. Asuma had a look of disdain on his face. Every time you spar you say the same thing to me and then... Asuma didn't want to remember anymore. Seeing Asuma's face full of disbelief, Garashi had to say, don't you understand his beliefs? Graduating early and challenging me, he wants to prove himself, to prove that he is different from Lord White Fang. He who fights with this belief won't be so easily confused by genjutsu. Hearing Garashi mention White Fang, Asuma felt a little regretful. Lord White Fang is really too weak. I used to admire him. Garashi didn't comment on Asuma's weak evaluation, but his eyes calmly looked forward. He's here. Unlike the previous Kakashi, this time he carried a short sword on his back. White Fang's relic. Garashi understood. In the eyes of others, the biggest change in Kakashi should be that he was colder, like a piece of ice, giving people a feeling that strangers shouldn't get close to him. Garashi-senpai, sorry to bother you again. Looking at Garashi, Kakashi's dead eyes seemed to have a little more color. Don't worry, fighting with a genius like you is also a kind of improvement for me. Garashi smiled gently as always. Without too many words, after forming the opposite seal, Kakashi directly pulled out the short sword on his back. Then he rushed forward. Body flicker technique. Chakra gathered on Kakashi's feet, allowing him to move at high speed like a gust of wind, and the distance between the two quickly closed. Garashi began to form seals the moment Kakashi moved. His hands danced so fast that only afterimages could be seen in the eyes of everyone. Genjutsu, cloud follower technique. Kakashi's footsteps paused, and his figure appeared from the illusion. He got hit. Asuma on the side was happy at first, but the next moment he saw Kakashi moving at high speed again. Sure enough, Garashi wasn't too surprised. The current Kakashi should be at his most determined moment. It's not so easy to defeat him with Genjutsu. Thinking of this, Garashi's right fist suddenly clenched. The distance between the two was not too far. Even if there was a delay in the middle, it was enough for Kakashi to close in with body flicker technique. This is Hatake family's Kenjutsu. Kakashi's eyes were firm, and he held the short sword with both hands and slashed violently. Looking at the blue light flashing on Kakashi's blade, Garashi waved his fist. Lightning released chakra's fluctuation. Is it similar to ninjutsu? Kacha. An arm was thrown up, but the next moment, Garashi's severed arm turned into a wooden block. Substitution technique. Kakashi looked around vigilantly, but suddenly realized that the sunlight above was blocked. No, it's transformation technique. The severed arm turned into Garashi's appearance and punched down. Kakashi didn't have time to dodge and hurriedly blocked with his sword. Clang bang. Under the violent bombardment that was as strong as a mountain, even the blade of the saber was slightly bent. The next moment, Kakashi flew out like a cannonball. Damn, my combat experience is still too little. Kakashi was aware of his shortcomings, but there was nothing he could do. Experience was not something that could be made up for by pure talent. Moreover, it was not up to him to think more. Shueisha leaped into the air and landed on the ground. Kakashi quickly dodged to the side. Boom. Seeing a big hole in the green grass by Garashi's punch, Kakashi's closed heart couldn't calm down. With this kind of power, there's no way to continue after one punch, right? Pure taijutsu is still very difficult to work. Garashi sighed and grabbed a shuriken from the tool bag. Kakashi's pupils contracted slightly. Of course, he knew that the senior's throwing technique was also extremely powerful. The next moment, more than a dozen shuriken shot out like a rain of flowers. Kakashi dodged one by one, but before he could relax, the shuriken that fell to the ground was pulled towards him by the chakra string. What shocked him even more was that the senior's left hand was controlling the chakra string, and his right hand was clenched into a fist, and he rushed towards him. So it can be done like this? Since the senior can do it, then. Kakashi made a seal with both hands, and his left hand suddenly burst out with dazzling lightning, and then his right hand took out the short sword in his mouth. I can do it too. Chapter 69. Looking at Kakashi's attitude of "you can cheat, I can also cheat," the surrounding crowd burst into a fierce exclamation. Is this a genius? This level of skill can be learned at a glance. Both of them are monsters. They can do things we can't even imagine. Wait, what about A-class ninjutsu? Why didn't Kakashi use A-class ninjutsu? What do you know? Multiple shadow clone jutsu will distribute chakra evenly. If you can't defeat the opponent before the clone is exhausted, it means failure. On the field, Kakashi waved his short sword to block the shuriken, rushed all the way to Garashi and pushed the thunder ball in his hand. Then, under his incredulous gaze, a fist pierced through the lightning and sent him flying. Cough. Kakashi coughed violently and got up awkwardly. Under normal circumstances, the opponent's injury should be more serious than his. But Kakashi didn't rejoice because of this. This was because the discussions around him had already reached his ears. A newcomer is a newcomer, even the initial fear of Garashi has forgotten? Exchanging injuries with Shushi? What kind of idiot is that? Don't say that. After all, Garashi rarely exchanging injuries with others. It's normal that newcomers don't know. Kakashi's heart continued to sink. Sure enough, the next moment, he saw Shushi walking out almost unscathed. Still not going to use all your strength? Garashi asked with a smile. Now I don't seem to have any other choice. Kakashi took a deep breath and began to print. Multiple shadow clone jutsu is a complete copy of his current state. That is to say, the worse his state, the worse the clone's ability to resist attacks will be. So, even if this jutsu is very risky, he can only gamble. If he drags on, he won't even be qualified to gamble. Boom. After a burst of smoke, suddenly there were 60 or 70 Kakashi's figures around him. If the amount of chakra is enough, the multiple shadow clone jutsu can even create thousands of clones. But even so, A lineup of 60 to 70 people is already shocking enough in the eyes of the student ninjas. Senpai, this is my final attack. 60 to 70 Kakashi said in unison, their voices shaking the forest. Very energetic. Garashi's hands began to form seals. His hand speed was so fast that it was dazzling. Looks like I have to get serious too. Illusion, Fox's mind. However, Kakashi, who were like fierce tigers rushing down the mountain, did not have the slightest bit of disorder in their footsteps. Unfortunately, illusions don't work on doppelgangers. No, this is enough. Garashi smiled and actually took the initiative to run into the crowd. Seeing Garashi rushing in his direction without the slightest concealment, Kakashi's main body suddenly woke up. No, the previous genjutsu was to test the location of my main body. Thinking of this, Kakashi's main body no longer cared about hiding, and quickly turned the other doppelgangers around to protect himself. After all, now he only has 170% of his original chakra, and it is impossible for him to fight head-on with Garashi. The formation is completely messed up. Garashi's footsteps didn't stop, crushing all the way. With Kakashi's current ability, controlling a few doppelgangers for a short time is already the limit of the burden on his mind. Any more and he can only make them follow the most basic intelligence. And this kind of rigid attack naturally won't cause much trouble for Garashi. So in the eyes of others, the scene was just Garashi punching Kakashi. These doppelgangers can swarm up, but they can only be used as a meat shield. Kakashi also realized the crisis, gritted his teeth, and simply let all the doppelgangers surround him, completely covering his body. Blocking my sight, do you want me to see something? Garashi thought about it and quickly understood Kakashi's plan. Oh, don't tell me you want to copy my actions again? Even without the Sharingan, you can't change the heart of duplication? Thinking of this, Garashi rushed up more ferociously. This is also good. If I want him to calm down and listen to me, I have to crush his last pride. A-class ninjutsu. You are not the only one who can use it. Under Garashi's violent bombardment, Kakashi's doppelgangers disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Until the last one. However, at the moment when Garashi clenched his fist and punched, the short sword in Kakashi's hand suddenly turned into a human shape, and he grabbed the kunai to meet it. Kachaboom. The kunai was fragmented, blood splashed from the palm, and Kakashi was also heavily blasted out. In just a few seconds, the changes made the surrounding people dizzy, and they felt a kind of excitement in their hearts. Is it over? Who won? In their expectant eyes, the dust dispersed. Kakashi struggled to get up and his right arm was strangely twisted. Although Garashi stood calmly, bright red drops of blood couldn't stop dripping from the fingertips of his right hand. It seemed that both sides were injured, but everyone knew that Kakashi's injury should be more serious than Garashi's. You're a fast learner. Garashi smiled slightly as if he didn't care about his injury at all. Although I don't know why Senpai didn't dodge, but now we can't make hand seals. That is to say, the next confrontation is between Taijutsu and Kenjutsu. Kakashi raised his short sword, and then rushed up with great excitement. I will prove, boom. But in the next moment, Kakashi flew back at a speed faster than before. Even the dagger was sent flying far away. Kakashi struggled to get up again, and then looking at the spinning chakra ball in Garashi's left hand, his eyes were full of disbelief. How is it possible? Is it a one-handed hand seal? And why haven't I seen this jutsu before? Garashi smiled and dispersed the chakra ball in his hand. You haven't seen it before. After all, this is a ninjutsu that I recently successfully developed, and the difficulty of practicing it should be at the same level as your shadow clone jutsu. Hearing Shushi's words, there was a dead silence in the surroundings, but soon, there was an explosion. What? Garashi can also use A-class ninjutsu? Although Kakashi learned it earlier, but this is a ninjutsu developed by Garashi himself. And it's a ninjutsu without seal. It's too exaggerated. When we were still troubled by the three clones jutsu, Garashi should be able to develop A-class ninjutsu by himself. Everyone was so excited that they couldn't control themselves. They felt that they had witnessed the birth of a miracle. Kakashi's talent was amazing enough, but compared to Garashi, it seemed to be overshadowed. Just like the stars in the sky, only when the sun sets can they show their brilliance. Kakashi's eyes also dimmed since last night. He crazily wanted to prove himself, but he still failed. He is not the senpai's opponent at all, and what made it even more difficult for him to accept is that his last bit of pride was shattered. Thinking of this, Kakashi, who was barely supporting himself, weakly lay down, looking at the afterglow of the setting sun and muttered to himself. Sure enough, the son of a waste is also a waste. Chapter 70. Uchiha clan in a big house. A middle-aged ninja in his 30s and a young ninja in his 20s were sitting on their knees, and the atmosphere was a bit quiet. I can't imagine that Tsukumo-sama would choose to end his life in this way. Well, if he could become Naruto with his character, he might be able to change the current situation of our clan. Yagadame-sama, do you think that Tsukumo-sama's death might have something to do with us? Patriarch, you think too much. Although our clan is feared, it's not to this extent. Yes, I think too much. Fugaku nodded and sighed. It's a pity that I'm still too young and my prestige can't convince the masses. This kind of thing can't be rushed, you can only subtly change people's minds. Uchiha Hakadame-sama looked dignified. Compared to the clan, I think Patriarch should pay more attention to the changes in the outside world. I'll trouble you to pay more attention to the clan's tendency. Fugaku nodded and hesitated. As for the outside world, should we bet on Yandame-sama Naruto in advance? Although Orochimaru's attitude towards us has always been ambiguous, but showing goodwill in advance should. Uchiha Hakadame-sama sighed, but he found that the man in front of him was frowning. Patriarch, what's wrong? Fugaku pondered for a moment. I'm sorry, senpai, compared to Orochimaru-sama, I'm more optimistic about Minato. Minato? Hakadame-sama was lost in thought, and it took him a while to remember. Jiraiya's disciple? Fugaku nodded heavily. Although I don't recognize the will of fire, but if I have to say, it can only be him. Hakadame-sama was shocked. You're so optimistic about him, but he's still too young, and his strength and prestige can't be compared to Orochimaru. Fugaku smiled. In terms of strength and prestige, Tsukumo-sama should be above Orochimaru-sama, but what's the result? Naruto-sama wants to choose someone who can truly inherit his. No, it should be the first Sama's will. After a moment of silence, the 8th generation slowly nodded. Perhaps you are right. Moreover, sending charcoal in the snow is better than adding flowers to a brocade. It's just, how do you plan to get in touch with him? Fugaku's face was gloomy. If his analysis is not wrong, it means that Sandaime may really attach great importance to Minato. Under such circumstances, rashly approaching would only backfire. At this moment, a commotion broke out in the courtyard. Amazing, amazing. Yes, Senior is really a monster. Hearing one of the familiar voices, an awkward expression appeared on the 8th generation patriarch's face. I've made a fool of myself. Fugaku chuckled. Children should be more lively. At this time, the two excited people finally saw the situation clearly and hurriedly saluted. Father, uncle, chief. Seeing that there were other children around, the 8th generation didn't want to be rude. Shunyan, what are you guys discussing? Hearing this, Shunyan also became excited. It's a battle between our school and it's an A-class ninjutsu duel. At first, when he heard that it was a battle in the school, the 8th generation was very calm, but when he heard about A-class ninjutsu, he was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. Even among jonins, A-class ninjutsu is an absolute trump card. When did such a level of ninjutsu appear in the school? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, is there a new jonin in the school? Shunyan and Bordered Soil shook their heads. No, it's a battle between the 1st and 2nd years. The 8th generation's mouth twitched, and when he was about to curse, Fugaku stopped him. One of them is Hatake Kakashi, right? Hatake. The 8th generation was surprised. White Fang-sama's son. Fugaku nodded. No wonder. The 8th generation's eyes were complicated. Almost all of them grew up in the shadow of White Fang. What about the other one? It's Garashi. Garashi? The 8th generation's eyes lit up. The kid who put you back on the right track. Shunyan said without any embarrassment. That's him. Haha, last year I was able to fight with Garashi, but now I can't last more than 5 seconds. The 8th generation and Fugaku were surprised. Shunyan was a genius who opened his eyes at the age of 8, but he looked down on himself. Bordered Soil nodded in agreement. After all, Senpai is a genius who developed an A-class ninjutsu at the age of 6. Puff. This time both Fugaku and Shunyan were speechless. Being able to master an A-class ninjutsu at this age is already exaggerated enough. As for developing an A-class ninjutsu, is this something a human can do? Seeing the two so excited, Bordered Soil quickly explained. In fact, Senpai said that he only provided the inspiration and idea, the rest of the details were completed by Ni-san. That's a little more acceptable? The two sighed in unison and then stared at each other. What's the name of this Minato you mentioned? Bordered Soil was shocked. Minato. Fugaki Yagako looked at each other and smiled. Then he looked at the two of them amiably. How old is Shushi? Does he have a close female classmate? In the future, bring him to our clan to play. We also have a lot of cute girls. Bordered Soil and Shunian also looked at each other. It's over, the clan leader seems to be broken. Woodleaf Hospital. Kakashi was lying on the hospital bed like a salted fish, staring at the ceiling in silence. At this moment, a sound came from outside the door. Kakashi-san, can I come in? Hearing this voice, Kakashi's eyes flickered. After a moment of silence, he said, Please come in. Garashi walked into the ward, closed the door, and sat on the chair next to Kakashi. Senpai, what's the matter? Actually, I've been thinking for a long time about whether to talk to you. Garashi looked solemn. Because, what you said before you fell yesterday. Kakashi's eyes were indifferent. Do you want to talk to me about that trash? It's uncomfortable to say something that goes against your heart, isn't it? I don't. If you really think so, you wouldn't have challenged me with Tsukumo-senpai's sword. Garashi stared at Kakashi's eyes. I just want to prove that I'm not the same as that trash. As if he didn't dare to look directly at Garashi's eyes, Kakashi awkwardly turned his head away. At this moment, a barrier opened. Kakashi looked back in surprise only to see Garashi said with a smile, What I'm going to say next is just some of my personal conjectures. It's not good if it's misunderstood by others, so let's set up a sound ceiling formation. Kakashi wasn't surprised that Garashi could use such a simple barrier, but his heart was also aroused by curiosity, and a little bit of hope that even he didn't know what he was looking for. Garashi looked serious. First of all, do you think Tsukumo-senpai is strong? Kakashi was silent for a moment. Everyone I've met is amazed by his strength. Yes, he's a powerful ninja that even my sensei admires. Garashi sighed softly and changed the topic. So, do you think such a powerful ninja doesn't have a tenacious will? Kakashi's eyes flashed brilliantly, but he still said, Isn't he the best example? Garashi shook his head gently. Then I'll ask from another angle. I heard that Tsukumo-senpai hasn't been in a good state for the past few months? Kakashi complained, It's all his fault for being a busybody and saving those irrelevant people. Will the result change? Maybe the public opinion will say that Tsukumo-senpai is too cold-blooded? Kakashi was startled and stammered. How is that possible? The person who completes the mission is a hero. Who knows, it's just a guess. Garashi smiled and changed the topic. However, when Tsukumo-senpai made this decision, maybe he was thinking that he didn't want you to have a cold-blooded father. Kakashi's eyes were confused. Garashi continued. In fact, it's a little strange. Tsukumo-senpai is not in good health. Why does he frequently go on missions? It's not a wartime state where missions are urgent. Kakashi's palms suddenly clenched the bedsheet. You mean someone wants to target him? Garashi shook his head. I don't know, it's just my guess. After all, if there is a misunderstanding, it must be very uncomfortable to be misunderstood by your own son. Kakashi shook his head frantically as if he didn't want to believe this answer. Impossible, he's so strong, who can target him? Garashi sighed softly. What if it's because of you? Kakashi was stunned. Could it be that he's afraid that I'll be targeted? So, all of this is just my guess. Maybe Tsukumo-senpai is really a coward? Garashi smiled and stood up. Shouldn't you be the one to uncover the truth? Kakashi breathed heavily. You're right, I have to pull myself together. Whether he's a hero or a coward, at least these things should be investigated by me. Shushi turned around and walked outside. His right hand, which was wrapped in bandages, was soaked with blood because he had forcibly formed a hand seal. Tears welled up in Kakashi's eyes and he was moved. Senpai, thank you. Garashi waved his hand without looking back and sighed softly. It's always difficult for gentle and correct people to survive, because this world is neither gentle nor correct. Neither gentle nor correct. Kakashi muttered to himself, looking at Garashi's back with a burning flame in his eyes. If it's you, Senpai, you can definitely create a correct world. Chapter 71. Time always passes by unconsciously, and in the blink of an eye, for years have passed. Ninja School. First place, Shimizu Garashi, full score in the three-body technique, full score in the throwing technique, full score in the anti-tracking technique, full score in the extension and expansion of the will of fire. Although it was the most exaggerated result since the establishment of the ninja school, no one present was surprised. In their view, it would be strange if Garashi didn't get full score in any subject. However, Asma next to Garashi was very nervous. I'm second. However, when the teacher in front of the crowd reported the results, Asma wailed on the spot, ouch! How can it be Kurenai? At this moment, the originally happy Red was dissatisfied. Suma, what's the meaning of this? Are you looking down on me? I didn't. Ouch, why is the third place Mute? This time Mute, who was depressed because of losing to Kurenai, began to grind her teeth. Bastard, am I that bad? Asma turned his head away with a look of dissatisfaction. This is too unfair. Obviously we all got full score, but because your cultural results are better than mine, you are ranked ahead of me. At this time Ibixi's contemptuous voice sounded in his ear. You are not qualified to say this. Most of the books about the will of fire were written by Naruto-sama. Hearing this, Asma's body trembled. It's over, I didn't pass the extension of the will of fire that the old man is most proud of. I will definitely be beaten to death when I go back. Do you think it's too late for me to repeat a year? Ibixi's mouth twitched. Is your brain eaten by a parasite? Although it's difficult to get full score like Garashi, it's impossible to fail. Asma looked at him with contempt. I just think that the things in the book are too fake. It's simply an insult to my IQ. Cough cough. Right, you also think that those things are so disgusting that you want to cough, right? So it's not that I don't know, I just don't want to violate my own ninja path. At this moment, a large, warm hand was placed on Asma's shoulder. So you have ninja Dao. Then when we go back tonight, show me your ninja Dao. Asma's body trembled. He turned around stiffly and happened to meet a pair of amiable eyes. However, Sandaime didn't listen to him. He walked through the crowd and went straight to the podium. Today I will give everyone a graduation speech. Asma stood below the stage as if his soul had been hollowed out. He said weakly, do you think I still have a chance? Ibixi patted him on the shoulder and said in a mournful tone, today is the day you carry out your own ninja path. Rest in peace. On the stage, third Naruto was still as kind as ever. Children, I'm very happy to see you standing here. From today onwards you will have a new name, Woodleaf Genin. Hearing this, the crowd burst into excited cheers. For many of them, becoming an official ninja is something they have been looking forward to for a long time. Sandaime raised his hands and pressed down. This means growth, but it also means responsibility. The outside world is not as gentle as the village. Competition, deceit, betrayal, and killing are everywhere. Maybe some of you will never be able to come back because of a mission. Hearing Sandaime's words, everyone calmed down from the excitement of graduation. At this time, Sandaime's voice suddenly became passionate, but because of this, we should protect the hard-won peace of the village. In this village there are your family, friends, and people you are willing to fight for. Are you willing to let these precious things be destroyed by the enemy? The audience was silent for a moment, and then suddenly burst out into loud shouts. No. Absolutely not. Sandaime looked at this scene with gratification and said with a smile, where the leaves dance, the fire will continue to grow. The fire will continue to illuminate the village and let the new leaves sprout. We used to protect you, but from now on, it will be your turn to protect us old men. It has to be said that Sandaime's voice was very infectious. After the speech, the rookies in the audience were moved to tears, and they couldn't wait to sacrifice themselves for Woodleaf. Next, it was time to issue the Woodleaf forehead protector to each graduating ninja. Woodleaf Genin? It doesn't feel bad. Garashi smiled and put the forehead protector on his head. Asma looked at the forehead protector and muttered, You say if I cut this forehead protector, will the old man forget today's matter and beg me not to be a traitor? As soon as his voice fell, everyone around him seemed to be afraid of being infected by his idiocy and stood away from him. Seeing everyone's reaction, Asma had to accept his fate. Okay, I understand. At this time, the 8 gods on the stage looked at the roster in his hand and hesitated. As for the division of classes, the division of classes will be announced on the notice outside the school this evening. Now you are dismissed. Everyone didn't think much and scattered with cheers. After a while in Naruto's office. Naruto-sama, isn't this division of classes not in line with the rules? 8 gods pointed at the roster and was somewhat puzzled. Garashi, Kurenai, and Asma, they are the strongest in the class, isn't this a way to balance their strength? Sandaime knocked the opium pipe on the table and said calmly, the gap in strength between them and the others is too big. If they team up with others, the tasks they take will be too easy and they won't be able to train. If the tasks they take are too difficult, the others will be in danger. 8 gods suddenly nodded and said with emotion, yes, their strength is even beyond the ordinary Chunin, especially Garashi. I suspect that he is close to the strength of a jonin. Sandame smiled and didn't say anything. After a while, his face became dignified again. In addition, I have other considerations for the three of them to team up. Eight Gods was puzzled. What other reasons are there? Maybe you haven't felt it in the village, but the clouds of war are beginning to cover the land of shinobi again. Eight Gods was surprised. What? Is there going to be a war again? In fact, the small frictions between the villages have never stopped, but Naruto-sama said it so solemnly. Eight Gods naturally didn't think it was a small frictions. I don't know yet, this is just my guess from the changes in the entrusted tasks. Possible. I hope this guess is wrong. Eight Gods tried to calm down, but what does this have to do with the division of classes? Sandame's face was firm. All three of them are geniuses. If they can grow up as soon as possible, they may play a certain role in the war. Eight Gods was surprised. Asuma is your? Sandame shook his head. It is because he is my son that he should go to the battlefield. Eight Gods didn't try to persuade Sandame anymore, but his eyes were full of admiration. Naruto-sama, who is the jonin you arranged for them? Yamanaka Inoichi. Chapter 72. In Shinakushina's house, which has gradually developed into a small base for Garashi. Cheers? Forward leaf. Amidst the excited clinking of glasses and cheering, the sweet juice splashed out. Before today they were still people of the same world, but after today they will run into a different future. So the only thing they can do is to cheer and vent. On this side, Asuma and Ibixi hugged each other. Ah, Ibixi, let me tell you, if you don't have such a foul mouth, you are very cute. Oh, actually, I also admire you. I have a foul mouth consciously, but you can also have a foul mouth unconsciously. When did I have a foul mouth? Is it wrong to tell the truth? It's not wrong to tell the truth, but the way you speak is really asking for a beating. On the other side, Shizune and Kurenai were discussing in a low voice. Kurenai, I may leave with Leaf with Tsunade-sama today. Although I knew this day would come, it's still too sudden. When I'm not here, you must take care of Garashi. Well, I will do this kind of thing even if you don't tell me. In the middle, Mizuki and Garashi were talking. Mizuki, I heard that Orochimaru-sama accepted you as a disciple? Well, he wants me to practice senjutsu. But isn't your chakra still lacking a lot? He said that he will find a way to solve it. Is it because of the curse? No, Yugo shouldn't be born yet. Then is it because of the first-generation cell research? Garashi's mind turned and he warned with a serious expression. Although this may not be appropriate for me to say, Sensei did say that Orochimaru-sama has changed so much that even she can't recognize him. In short, you must be careful. The village said that Orochimaru is the most likely person to become the fourth-generation head Naruto, but Garashi not only didn't care about his identity, but also took the initiative to remind me to be careful of Orochimaru. A warm current gushed out from Shueimu's heart. Sure enough, in this world only Garashi truly cared about him. However, risks are often accompanied by benefits. For a mediocre ninja like me, just looking at Garashi's back is already very difficult. If I want to become his most useful tool, I can only do this. Of course, Shueimu knew why Orochimaru would take a fancy to an ordinary person like him, but in order not to let Garashi worry, he pretended to be relaxed and said, "It will be fine. Why would Orochimaru harm an ordinary person like me?" Aha, I must be thinking too much. Then, let's celebrate you becoming the disciple of Orochimaru. Yes, I will definitely. At this moment, a ninja wearing goggles rushed in. That's amazing. You'll never guess who I'm in the same class as. Oh, it's Bordered Soil. You guys graduated too? For Sir Bordered Soil, graduating a year early is nothing. Don't interrupt, you haven't guessed yet. Look at your excited look, you must be in the same class as Rin, right? Although I am indeed in the same class as Rin, but that's not what I want to talk about. Seeing the playful smile on everyone's face, Bordered Soil guiltily changed the topic. It's Kakashi. Hearing that it's Kakashi, many people were puzzled. Didn't Kakashi graduate several years ago? Moreover, I heard that he became a chunin the second year after graduation. Bordered Soil scratched his head. It seems that the team he was in before, except for him, everyone else died in a mission. Because he didn't have time to be assigned to a new team, he simply decided to be in the same class as us. Garashi raised his eyebrows. Should I say that he's worthy of being a real protagonist? This heavenly cursed Lone Star ring was too dangerous. Bordered Soil continued. Also, the jonin that the village arranged for us to guide us is Minato's. Hee, I was worried that it would be one of those old-fashioned people. It turned out to be Minato-san. Asuma said and couldn't help but tease. Bordered Soil, how bad is your strength that you arranged such a powerful teacher to balance the strength of your team? Bordered Soil's face darkened and said with a stare, you still have the nerve to talk about me, aren't you the last in the senior team? I what? Asuma said and finally woke up. Wait, how do you know our class situation? Bordered Soil waved his hand indifferently. The class situation is out, and it's posted on the notice outside the school. Hearing this, everyone in the living room couldn't help but be curious, and one by one they rushed out shouting. Only Bordered Soil was left in the room, dumbfounded. I haven't even started to celebrate yet. At night, Garashi looked helplessly at the three people in front of him. Sensei, you don't have to leave in such a hurry, right? Jiraiya laughed at the side. If we leave during the day, there will be too many people who can't bear to part with us, and it'll be ugly with so many people crying. Tsunade looked at him with disdain. Can't bear to part with the toilet paper you give us every month? Jiraiya retorted, how is my book toilet paper? At least it's an excellent toilet reading material. Tsunade chuckled and ignored him. She turned to look at Shushi. With your current ability, I don't have much to teach you. How can that be? I still have a lot of things to ask Sensei. You only lack experience and time will be your best teacher. Tsunade said, and her face suddenly became serious. And the last lesson I'm going to teach you is to allow you to officially practice senjutsu. With your current amount of chakra, you should be able to resist the erosion of natural energy. Garashi said seriously, I understand. I don't know senjutsu and there's nothing I can teach you. But you've already signed a contract with the Shikatsu Forest, you can ask Sensei Katsuyu when the time comes. Jiraiya warned from the side, although senjutsu is powerful, don't rely too much on it because before you enter Sage mode, there will be a period of time when you leave the battle to refine senjutsu chakra. And this process is stationary, so it's very dangerous. Shushi nodded. Unless his chakra is as abundant as Naruto's, and he can use Shadow Clone Jutsu to help him refine senjutsu chakra, or he can enter Sage mode instantly like Hashirama. Otherwise, this ability is destined to be used as a trump card. Seeing that the few of them had finally finished talking, Silent Sound walked up. Garashi, this is my uncle's experience of practicing spirit transformation jutsu. You just exchanged for the spirit transformation jutsu today, this experience may be useful to you. Garashi took the book, smiled, took out a kunai and handed it to Shizune. In the case where the perception range is too far, I can't use Flying Thunder God to directly teleport, but it's still possible to send some letters, although it's only one-sided. Jiraiya looked at this scene, stunned. Naruto-sama used the ninjutsu that shocked the shinobi world to pick up girls. I learned it. Shizune took the kunai carefully, and then suddenly stepped forward and lightly pecked Garashi's face, chuckled and ran away. Garashi, you will definitely become the greatest ninja in Woodleaf. Chapter 73. The next day early morning. In an empty classroom, Garashi and the other two had already arrived in advance. Oh, Sensei is so slow. After waiting for a while, Asuma yawned impatiently, looked to the side and asked, Garashi, I heard that Tsunade-sama and the others left Woodleaf? Garashi flipped through the experience of spiritualization jutsu and replied without raising his head, they left last night. Asuma sighed sadly, growth is really accompanied by troubles. In the blink of an eye, so many familiar faces are gone. Kurenai glanced at him, don't say it like we won't see each other in the future, bastard. Asuma shrugged indifferently and asked, have you heard that our instructor seems to be a Yamanaka Jonin? Kurenai nodded, I heard, and then? Asuma smiled, the Yamanaka Jonin's frontal combat ability doesn't seem to be strong. Do you think the village thinks that the three of us are too powerful so they deliberately arranged a weak Jonin to balance? What are you? Kurenai turned her head and laughed unladylike, haha, what are you doing? Asuma had 2 pens inserted in his nostrils, and he made a victory sign with a happy face. Release. With a light shout, the classroom door was pushed open, and a young ninja who looked to be in his 20s walked in. Never underestimate any ninja, this is the first lesson I teach you. By the way, Asuma-san, it's very rude to speak ill of others behind their backs. Garashi and Kurenai hurriedly greeted him, Yamanaka-sensei. Asuma, who was saved, rubbed his nose and looked resentful, I know. The young ninja smiled helplessly and walked to the podium. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Yamanaka Inoichi. My interest is planting flowers and grass. My dream is probably to have a child in the future and train him to be an excellent ninja. Asuma muttered softly, why do I feel like the old man is more energetic than him? Naruto-sama is old but not old at heart. Otherwise, how can you be born at the age of 42? Yamanaka Inoichi glanced at him. Of course, he only dared to think this in his heart. As for my ability, my technique is a secret spiritual technique used to control the enemy's body. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. In a sense, Asuma is not wrong. My existence is to make up for your shortcomings in intelligence and perception. Asuma glared at her. Then why did you play with my body? Yamanaka Inoichi's mouth twitched. What is this? Asuma-sen, has no one ever told you that a straightforward truth is annoying? Although Yamanaka Inoichi said that he was useless, Garashi didn't take it seriously. Any jonin is an elite who grew up on the edge of life and death. They are at the top of ordinary ninja. Even if he's just an intelligence ninja, his strength is absolutely not to be underestimated. Asuma muttered in a low voice, that guy Ibiki seems to have said the same thing. Do all ninjas who do intelligence like to play this game? I finished the introduction. As for the three of you, Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. I've already heard about you, so there's no need to introduce you. How can this be? I even prepared a speech to shock everyone when I went back last night. Asuma, who was eager to introduce himself, was stunned, but he soon cheered up again. What about strength? You have to understand our strength to better cooperate, right? Indeed, interests and hobbies can be understood from intelligence, but real strength can only be observed through actual combat. Yamanaka Inoichi didn't refute this time. So, you three will show me an actual combat exercise. Asuma, who was rubbing his hands, was stunned. Wait, isn't it the three of us who will fight with you, sensei? Yamanaka Inoichi calmly waved his hand. I'm a jonin. How can I bully you newcomers? Asuma was still a little suspicious. Really? But I heard that other instructors jonin will fight on their own. Yamanaka Inoichi's face remained unchanged. I'm different from them. As an intelligence ninja, I can analyze your approximate strength as long as I watch from the side. In addition, another reason for those jonins to fight is to let newcomers see the gap in strength, but you are all geniuses. I don't think it's necessary to take this step. Asuma nodded in agreement. That's true. Kurenai couldn't help but give him a blank look. Where did you get this confidence from? Is it because you lost too much that you built some strange confidence? Seeing that Asuma finally didn't entangle more on this matter, Yamanaka Inoichi was secretly relieved. If he didn't know the strength of the three of them in advance, maybe he would have really overturned today. After all, what he was best at was his family's secret spiritual technique, and there were two genjutsu ninjas with strong spiritual resistance. What's more, he really couldn't see through Garashi's strength. However, Hatake Kakashi became a chunin at the age of 6, and now I heard that he has the strength close to jonin, and his talent is stronger than Kakashi. Even if he lacks pressure and tempering, his strength is estimated to not be weaker than Kakashi. Thinking of this, his belief in not fighting became stronger. If he was defeated by his own student on the first day, would he still have dignity as a teacher? Let's go to the test now. They came to the grove behind the school. Asuma and Kurenai are in a group, and Garashi is in a group alone. Do you have any objections? Yamanaka Inoichi divided them according to his understanding of the situation. I have an objection. Asuma raised his hand. Asuma-san wants to fight with Garashi alone? Yamanaka Inoichi nodded with relief. As expected of Naruto-sama's. Asuma calmly interrupted, I'm fine with it, but if Yamanaka-sensei really wants to know our true strength, it's definitely not possible. This time it was Yamanaka Inoichi's turn to be confused. Why do you say that? Kurenai next to him said with a bitter face, because it's over too fast. Asuma added, it's the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. If Garashi doesn't use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, we can still fight normally, but once he uses the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, the battle is over quickly. Flying Thunder God Jutsu? Yamanaka Inoichi's eyes widened. Although the document recorded Garashi's experience of exchanging the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he didn't think about it at all. After all, this is the most difficult space-time ninjutsu among the S-class ninjutsu. In his view, it's lucky enough to have Namikaze Minato succeed in this era. Actually, I also recently succeeded under the guidance of Minato-san. Garashi said modestly. But aren't you a medical ninja? Yamanaka Inoichi still found it difficult to accept. Without waiting for Garashi to speak, Asuma skillfully comforted, In order to appear in front of every injured person in time, it's reasonable for Garashi as a medical ninja to know some space-time ninjutsu. Chapter 74. Yamanaka Inoichi's 3 views were shocked, and he looked to the side and asked, "Is this reasonable?" Kurenai nodded vigorously, "This is very reasonable." "Is it because I'm too strange?" Yamanaka Inoichi tried to calm down his inner shock and barely squeezed out a smile. "Then how do you think we should test it?" Asuma didn't care. "In fact, I'm used to losing, but if you don't want to witness a battle that ends in 3 seconds, then you can only let Garashi restrict the use of Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Even if I'm an intelligence ninja, it's impossible to analyze any useful information in 3 seconds. Yamanaka Inoichi sighed and then looked to the side. "Garashi, I have to wrong you." Garashi didn't care and smiled. "In fact, it's not bad. Relying too much on one ninjutsu will only leave flaws for yourself. Even if you master such a terrible ninjutsu like Flying Thunder God Jutsu, you don't have the slightest idea of carelessness?" Yamanaka Inoichi nodded secretly. Compared with talent, he was actually more optimistic about the other party's temperament. Geniuses are very powerful, but only the geniuses who live to the end can be remembered by everyone. Geniuses who die in the middle are nothing. On the field, Asuma had taken the lead in launching an attack. Katana. Ash Concealment Jutsu. In an instant, the forest was shrouded in a thick smoke. The temperature is rising? Garashi didn't dare to neglect. While opening the perception barrier, he stepped on the tree and ran upward, trying to get out of the smoke. Seemingly aware of Garashi's movements, Asuma no longer hesitated. When released Great Gale. The smoke, which was originally in the state of embers, burst into flames under the blow of the wind. It's really troublesome to deal with this kind of attack without 5 elements release. It seems that it's time to put the practice of 5 elements release on the agenda. Garashi easily escaped the pursuit of the Sea of Fire and even had time to think about the future. Sure enough, Garashi's perception is too sharp. Asuma sighed and no longer hid, fully controlling the Sea of Fire. While Asuma was controlling the Sea of Fire, he had also exposed his position. "Is it there?" Garashi's eyes narrowed and he completed the seal almost instantly. Illusion, magical soundwave. The ferocious Sea of Fire suddenly calmed down, but in the next moment, a huge fire snake bit towards Garashi's location. It's Red's illusion. Garashi understood. Although Red's attainment in illusion was not as good as his, it was still easy for her to disrupt Asuma's chakra flow and awaken his teammates. At the same time, Red, who had been hiding from the beginning, made another seal. Illusion, dark sneak technique. Red also knew that her level of illusion was far inferior to Garashi's, so from the beginning she had never thought of resisting head-on. She left the task of attacking to Asuma, and she only needed to be the support and awaken. Yamanaka Inoichi stood on the branch of a big tree, watching the battle condescendingly. Seeing the endless high-level ninjutsu, his heart twitched. Are these little guys really genin? If I don't count their family's secret ninjutsu, I feel that they have mastered more high-level ninjutsu than I do. Although it was dark in front of him, Garashi did not panic. The heat wave coming towards him allowed him to clearly determine the direction of the attack. After easily avoiding the fire snake's bite, Garashi bit his finger and summoned the blood contract. Summoning technique. In the next moment, a huge slug with a body length of 10 meters appeared in the forest. Garashi-sama. The slug called out politely. Although the slugs of the Shikatsu forest were theoretically part of the slug sage, but just like the shadow clone jutsu, these slugs could also be regarded as independent lifeforms. Otherwise, Garashi would not dare to accept the slug sage's honorific. "Slug, I'm now under genjutsu and can't observe the surroundings. I'll have to trouble you to act as my eyes for the time being." Garashi stood on the slug's huge body and said softly, "Yes, Garashi-sama." The slug happily replied. After all, Dark Walk is only in genjutsu, it can't really change the sky and the earth. The slug who was not affected by the genjutsu could naturally see Asuma's attack. With the subtle cooperation of the slug, Asuma's continuous attacks all missed. Not only that, Garashi also controlled the slug and quietly moved in a certain direction. Although Dark Walk is an A-class genjutsu with Garashi's strength, there's no reason why he can't break it. Seeing Garashi summon the slug, Asuma was puzzled at first, but after noticing the direction the slug was moving, he finally woke up. "Kurenai, hurry up and remove the genjutsu." Garashi deliberately didn't remove the genjutsu. He wants to use chakra to find you. He couldn't help but be nervous. Without Kurenai's help, with his genjutsu resistance, he would be killed by Garashi in an instant. Kurenai, who was hiding in the corner of the forest, was shocked and hurriedly removed the genjutsu. However, it was too late. After recovering his sight, Garashi jumped a few times and appeared in front of Kurenai, who was preparing to escape. Golden Bind Jutsu. Kurenai, who had no time to move, was directly fixed in place. Seeing this, Asuma decisively raised his hand to surrender. Garashi couldn't help but laugh. He unbound Kurenai and then shouted to the top. Yamanaka-sensei, the test is over. Yamanaka Inoichi jumped down from the tree and looked at the tragic scene around him. When his eyes moved to Garashi, his heart twitched and blocked. Fortunately, I didn't play today, otherwise I would have played it out. Being affected by an A-class genjutsu, deliberately not removing the genjutsu, and even relying on the connection of the genjutsu to find the caster, is this really something that a human can do? It was the first time he saw someone spiritual will be strong to this extent. He even suspected that if he used the turning jutsu on Garashi, the result would be no better than Kurenai's. Asuma came up and winked. Yamanaka-sensei, our strength is okay, right? Yamanaka Inoichi suppressed the shock in his heart and looked at him and asked, why are you so proficient? What proficiency? Oh, you mean surrender? Asuma's face was full of bitterness. When you are defeated in the same way 1,000 times, I believe you will have the same awareness as me. If it was before, Yamanaka Inoichi might have despised him, but now, he looked at Asuma with a trace of sympathy and admiration. It must be hard to be an opponent with such a monster. Ahem, in fact, your performance is already very good. Except for the ninjutsu connection that is still relatively immature, the strength of ordinary chunin is not necessarily comparable to you. Just a chunin? Asuma sighed with melancholy and asked with interest, what about Garashi? Yamanaka Inoichi was silent for a moment and hesitated. I don't know, but in the field of genjutsu he should be able to reach the level of special jonin. Chapter 75. Garashi didn't comment on Yamanaka Inoichi's evaluation. If Wood Leaf Jonin is the benchmark of the ninja world, then Tokubetsu Jonin, in fact, it's hard to say what particularly outstanding performance. Therefore, even Asuma disdainfully curled his lips. I don't believe that Tokubetsu Jonin's genjutsu is as powerful as Garashi's. Kurenai also nodded. Yes, I heard that Hatake Kakashi is considered by many people to have the strength of Tokubetsu Jonin. Seeing this, Yamanaka Inoichi said with some madness, Tokubetsu Jonin is also very powerful, okay? Since when can even genin look down on Tokubetsu Jonin? However, when he thought of Garashi's previous performance, he was relieved. Geniuses are different from ordinary people, and monsters and geniuses can't be lumped together. Ahem, let me comment on the previous battle. First of all, Asuma and Kurenai, your performance is indeed worthy of the name of geniuses, but Yamanaka Inoichi warned with a dignified face. Both of you are too focused on the role of high-level ninjutsu. High-level ninjutsu is powerful, but at the same time, it also has the drawbacks of slow printing and chakra consumption. Just like in the battle just now, since there are two of you, you should take advantage of the number of people and the frequency of your attacks. Use ninjutsu that takes less time to make hand seals to force Shushi to be exhausted. Asuma was a little dissatisfied. Yamanaka-sensei, you may not know, but Garashi's medical ninjutsu is super powerful. Ninjutsu with too little power won't work on him at all. That's why I emphasize cooperation. Yamanaka Inoichi said earnestly, then looked to the side and asked, Garashi, the secret of your medical ninjutsu is Inu Wushuang Mie, right? Actually, it's a low-level version of Inu Wushuang Mie. Garashi didn't mind telling the secret at all. Inu Wushuang Mie is to grasp the enemy's attack in advance and cover that part with yang release chakra in advance. It's too dangerous to predict the enemy's attack in the battle, so I simply take the initiative to guide the injured part. Asuma looked at Garashi and suddenly realized, no wonder you always used to attack by yourself. It turns out that you want to control the situation in your own hands. Do you understand? Yamanaka Inoichi looked serious. In fact, you've lost in the control of the situation. If you can predict Garashi's actions, then you can use the simplest jutsu to cause the most effective damage. Asuma pondered for a moment and then said, what if Shushi predicted my prediction? Inoichi's this is, what if Garashi predicted that I predicted his prediction? Yamanaka Inoichi's mouth twitched and he simply ignored him. As for Garashi, you did very well in terms of the use of ninjutsu and timing, but that doesn't mean you have no weaknesses. Garashi said softly, is it an AoE attack? Yamanaka Inoichi was a little surprised. It was easy to see others clearly, but it was difficult to see oneself clearly, especially for those young and famous geniuses. However, this kind of worry didn't seem to happen to Garashi at all. Your main AoE attack is a group illusion, right? But just like in the drill just now, once the enemy has a ninja with strong illusion resistance, it will be difficult for your group attack to have any substantial effect. Garashi nodded approvingly. Because genjutsu can be awakened by chakras, disrupted flow by its companions, it does have a lot of limitations in group combat. In addition, your means to deal with the enemy's attack are also poor. Just like Asma's fire release before, the general ninja can use earth release to defend, wind release to rebound, and water release to extinguish, but you can only keep dodging. With that, Yamanaka Inoichi added, although this is under the condition of restricting your use of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, that kind of esoteric ninjutsu consumes a lot of chakra. It can be achieved with ordinary release jutsu, so there's no need to waste your chakra. Garashi also heard Yamanaka Inoichi's meaning. Are you suggesting that I practice 5 elements release? If it's an ordinary person, I wouldn't recommend them to do this kind of energy-wasting thing, but you're different. Even the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, a super difficult space-time ninjutsu, can be successfully practiced with both genjutsu and medical ninjutsu. Speaking of this, Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but show a look of envy and amazement. With this talent, even if you practice 5 elements release, it shouldn't take too much time. At least, under the premise that it doesn't involve advanced release. Garashi smiled. In fact, even if Yamanaka-sensei didn't say that, I was going to start practicing 5 elements release. Sure enough, he's worthy of being my favorite person, even his thoughts are the same as mine. Yamanaka Inoichi nodded with appreciation and added, however, remember to practice it without affecting your major ninjutsu. Garashi said with a smile, about this, Yamanaka-sensei, you don't have to worry. Because I have nothing to learn in these 2 aspects. You know it in your heart. Yamanaka Inoichi was stunned and touched his ear doubtfully. What did you just say? Kurenai blinked playfully. Garashi means that he has learned all of Tsunade-sama's medical ninjutsu and my father's genjutsu. Seeing Yamanaka Inoichi's confused expression, Kurenai's heart also found a trace of comfort for her father who was squeezed dry early. In fact, according to her father, Garashi's talent in genjutsu is stronger than medical ninjutsu, and her father's strength and foundation are not as good as Tsunade-sama. Because of this, Shushi's illusion technique had to be explored by himself since 2 years ago. Yamanaka Inoichi's breathing suddenly became rapid. Not a human being, this is not a human being, right? One is the strongest medical ninjutsu in the ninja world, and the other is Woodleaf's #1 genjutsu ninja. Learning all of their jutsu is almost equivalent to hollowing out all of Woodleaf's medical ninjutsu and genjutsu. So, standing in front of me is actually an emotionless learning machine, right? Yamanaka Inoichi struggled to suppress the soul of ridicule in his heart and reluctantly smiled. Ha ha ha, then I don't have to worry. After that, Yamanaka Inoichi's eyes subconsciously moved to Asma. Asma, who was a little confused, asked, Yamanaka-sensei, is there a problem? Oh, nothing. After regaining the confidence of a normal genius from someone, Yamanaka Inoichi said, the cultivation of the 5 elements release is inseparable from the change of form and nature. Although you may have already understood it as your instructor, I will explain it routinely. Chapter 76. Form change and nature change, as the name implies, is to change the form and nature of the jutsu so that it can exert more power. In fact, any release contains both form change and nature change, such as the Great Fireball Jutsu. The nature change is the flame, and the form change is the sphere. Garashi secretly pondered. According to his understanding, the nature change is the chemical change, and the form change is the physical change. Yamanaka Inoichi paused and then asked, since it also contains the nature change and the form change, do you know the difference between low-level ninjutsu and high-level ninjutsu? Garashi said softly, is it a characteristic? Yamanaka Inoichi was a little surprised. You know? Garashi nodded slightly. I learned about it in the book. Yes, it's a characteristic. Yamanaka Inoichi nodded. For example, the sharpness, rotation, hardness, penetration of the form change, and the high temperature, paralysis, moisturizing vitality of the nature change. Just like the fire dragon jutsu and the C-class ninjutsu, it sounds powerful, but what's the use of turning into a dragon? Looks scary. But the flame-sharp spear in the form of a spear is different. Red, who didn't know much about the 5 elements release, interrupted, Yamanaka-sensei, But isn't the flame without a physical body? Even if it turns into a spear, it can't be like a real spear, right? So, the most important step in the high-level form change is to compress chakra. Asma explained, you should have seen Garashi's Rasengan, which has a physical effect under high compression. Asma is right. Yamanaka Inoichi agreed. Just like the Reikage Sandame of Yunnan village, his Raitan armor, in addition to activating the body, the high-density Raitan chakra also has the strongest defense like armor. Seeing red nodding, Yamanaka Inoichi continued, as for the nature change, take fire release as an example, a series of characteristics such as high temperature, burning, bursting, light, etc. High-level escape techniques usually fused several characteristics or continuously deepened one characteristic. For example, the flame of the Grand Fireball technique is only at the temperature of an ordinary flame, but the dust concealment technique that Asma used in the previous battle can reach an extremely high temperature in an instant. Of course, not all situations are like this. There are also combinations of ninja tools and release techniques. The combination of release techniques and release techniques can also achieve the effect of high-level ninjutsu. Yamanaka Inoichi asked again, by the way, Garashi, have you tested your chakra attributes? Garashi nodded. My attributes are earth, water, and wind. 3 attributes? It's not bad at all. Yamanaka Inoichi said with a smile, with your talent, maybe you can use combination ninjutsu like Naruto-sama in the future. Speaking of combined ninjutsu, Garashi skillfully asked, I heard from Tsunade-sensei that when 2 types of chakra are combined at the same time, a new ninjutsu will be created. Tsunade-sama? Yamanaka Inoichi was slightly lost and immediately smiled. Tsunade-sama may want to talk to you about Mokutan. After all, Tsunade-sama's grandfather was the first dame who used Mokutan to pacify the warring states. Listening to Yamanaka Inoichi mentioning the most legendary first dame, Asma and Kurenai were also faintly excited. How is Mokutan integrated? Can we learn it too? Seeing their excitement, Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but laugh. Mokutan is the product of the combination of water chakra and earth chakra. Among you, only Garashi meets the conditions. However, don't think too much about it. Developing a Kekkai Genkai boundary is not something that can be successfully developed as long as there is a corresponding attribute of chakra. Otherwise, Naruto-sama would have developed more than one Kekkai Genkai boundary. Kurenai asked curiously, has anyone developed it successfully? Yamanaka Inoichi pondered for a moment. In recent decades, it seems that no new Kekkai Genkai boundary has been born, but looking back, there is a Kekkai Genkai elimination. Kurenai tilted her head and asked, Kekkai Genkai elimination, what is that? Yamanaka Inoichi looked dignified. That is the fusion of 3 attributes of chakra. Its power is completely above the Kekkai Genkai boundary. The dust release of the 3rd Tsuchikage is the Kekkai Genkai elimination. The 3rd Tsuchikage even developed a 3-attribute Kekkai Genkai elimination. Asma was shocked at first and then immediately disdained. Old man, the Sandame Naruto is too bad. He can't even develop a 2-attribute Kekkai Genkai boundary. That Kekkai Genkai elimination was actually developed by the 2nd Tsuchikage. The 3rd Tsuchikage just inherited it from him. Yamanaka Inoichi hurriedly explained, almost breaking out in cold sweat. Even if Naruto-sama is broad-minded, this kind of thing is hard to ignore. Worried that Asma would say something shocking, he quickly changed the topic. Ahem, let's continue to talk about Mokutan. Do you know what's so powerful about Mokutan? Well, I don't know. Mokutan doesn't have the softness of water release, nor the thickness of earth release, but it has a powerful characteristic that no other release can compare to absorption. Kurenai asked puzzledly. Absorption? It's absorbing chakra. Kurenai and Asma were shocked. It can even absorb chakra. Isn't this release too powerful? Just think about it and you can understand how terrible it is to be able to absorb the opponent's chakra in battle. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. Although Mokutan is powerful, the real power is Shodame-sama. If it's someone else, even if they have Mokutan, they may not be able to absorb the enemy. Or, they can only absorb the amount of chakra of an ordinary genin or chunin. It doesn't mean anything to the battle. Garashi listened and nodded secretly. It's the same Mokutan, but in the hands of Shodame-sama and Yamato, it's 2 completely different concepts. One can absorb as much as he wants and the other can hardly absorb. It can only be absorbed as interference, slightly suppressing the enemy's chakra flow. If you look at it from the perspective of my previous life, one can only be Dark North Divine Art, and the other can only be Huagong Daijutsu. The difference is Sage Body Yang Release, or Yamado's chakra is too little, resulting in insufficient horsepower to absorb the enemy? Asuma and Kurenai also calmed down from the shock. Indeed, no matter how powerful a ninjutsu is, it won't be much of a threat in the hands of the weak. Do you understand? Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. Just like the high-level ninjutsu you used before, in my opinion, it's not as threatening as the great fireball jutsu of other jonin. Asuma nodded thoughtfully, then whispered, I always feel that Yamanaka-sensei seems to look down on the great fireball jutsu. Ah, do I? Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. Let's stop here today. Starting tomorrow we'll be ready to accept missions. P.S. Anime 608 Hashirama said to Madara that this wood dragon can absorb your chakra. In episode 582 Mekkei said that the wood guy is absorbing the Kyuubi chakra. Chapter 77. Shikatsu Forest. On a huge green leaf, Garashi was sitting cross-legged. Breathe, 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 breathe. In self-hypnosis, Garashi seemed to have forgotten all the troubles around him. Almost every breath he took was in harmony with the wind, as if he was perfectly integrated with nature. The next moment, eyeshadow lines began to appear at the corner of his eyes. Wow! Garashi-sama is really amazing. The first time he practiced, he entered Sage mode. In these soft and cute cheers, Garashi slowly opened his eyes. The first stage of Sage mode is not difficult for me, but if I want to use Sage mode in a normal battle, I have to at least reach the second stage of Sage mode. Shushi muttered to himself. The second stage was actually a division based on his own understanding of it. The first stage is to refine in a static state for a period of time, then enter Sage mode. The second stage is to enter Sage mode in a moving state. Just like Jiraiya's Sage mode, although the two Sage Toads were fixed on his shoulders to help him refine chakra, they were not really motionless, they could still release ninjutsu. Based on his own experience, the Sage mode's stillness was more about inner peace. Immobility and small movements were just easier to achieve this state. As long as he can be calm in battle, it is possible to reach the second stage of Sage mode. As for the third stage, it is to enter Sage mode in seconds. Even in his opinion, this stage is too far away. Thinking of this, Garashi dispelled Sage mode, stood up, and looked at the giant slug in the center and bowed. Slug Sage, thank you for guiding me in my training. The giant slug, which looked like a mountain range, moved its body and said in a gentle voice, Little Shushi, it's your own hard work that allowed you to cultivate the Sage mode. If there's anything you need help with, please feel free to tell us. In a sense, this was one of the reasons why he chose the Shikatsu Forest. Compared to the Great Toad Immortal's prophecy from Mount Mystic Wood and the sinister White Snake Immortal from Dragon Ground Cave, the transcendent and indifferent Immortal Slug should be the least threatening. I understand. Thank you, Immortal Slug. After expressing his gratitude, Garashi began to form seals. Spirit communication technique. The next moment, a small slug appeared in front of Garashi. At the same time in Wood Leaf. The big slug that had been summoned by Garashi in advance looked at the position where the little slug had suddenly disappeared and muttered to itself, Is it done already? Then I'm going to start working too. As it spoke, it tried to extend its clumsy antennae and touched them twice symbolically. Reverse spiritual communication technique. As soon as he finished speaking, Garashi returned to Wood Leaf. Looking at the familiar surroundings, Garashi smiled and said, Thank you, slug. The big slug happily twisted its antennae. This is what I should do. After releasing the summoning technique and sending the big slug back to the Shikatsu Forest, Garashi went to the mission center. In front of the mission center, Asuma leaned on the pillar with his hands on his head. Garashi, you're so slow today. Sorry, I just finished cultivating. Asuma noticed Garashi's raindrops and fresh breath, and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. You're cultivating so early? Garashi smiled, only when I'm cultivating Sage mode. After all, cultivating in that state of tranquility is almost the same as sleeping. At this time, Yamanaka Inoichi walked out of the mission center. Now you know the gap? Geniuses aren't terrible. What's terrible is that geniuses work harder than you. Asuma calmly shrugged. I knew this when I was 5 years old. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled helplessly. Then it's really hard for you? Kurenai asked excitedly. Yamanaka-sensei, what level of task are we going to take? Garashi also rarely said, I hope it's not a D-level task. Even he didn't think that a task like finding pets to pick up garbage would have any growth. Seeing the three students looking at him, Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but smile. Under normal circumstances, genin can receive D-level and C-level tasks. However, it's not so easy for a new team like us to receive C-level tasks without any experience. Yamanaka Inoichi walked into the mission center and said, "Among them, the first thing to be excluded is the escort task." Asma asked, "Is it because it takes too long and affects efficiency?" In fact, it's because the employer of the escort task attaches the most importance to safety. Even if all of you are geniuses without any mission experience, no employer will agree to let you take on a mission. Yamanaka Inoichi stood in the C-level task area and introduced one by one. This is taming a large beast. Unfortunately, it's taming. If it's hunting, you should be able to receive it. This time it was Kurenai's turn to wonder, what's the difference? Garashi said with a smile, it should be worried that the failure of the task will scare away the target. Therefore, this type of task will have relatively higher requirements than hunting. Yamanaka Inoichi nodded. That's right. When you take a task in the future, you have to be like Masashi. Pay attention to the subtle differences. A real ninja should be able to analyze the necessary information before taking a task. Let's take a C-rank mission for example. The mission reward is usually 30,000 to 100,000 taels of silver. Missions that are time-consuming and dangerous will have a higher reward. Since we don't have a clear competitive advantage, most of the missions that we can receive are relatively low-quality missions. So, the task that's really suitable for us is this. Yamanaka Inoichi's right hand brushed across the task interface and finally stopped on a scroll on the left. Exterminate the mountain bandits. The task reward is 60,000 silver. Looking at the content on the scroll, Asma suddenly became excited. Will there be a chunin in it? Yamanaka Inoichi was a little dumbfounded. Not to mention a chunin, even a genin is unlikely. Asma sighed with disinterest. What? Boring. However, Yamanaka Inoichi's expression was dignified. Ninja is also a human, and he will die if his head is cut off. There used to be a newcomer like you who always thought that ordinary people were nothing to be afraid of. As a result, because of arrogance, he was surrounded by the enemy. He didn't have time to print and was finally dismembered by the ordinary people he looked down on. Although Asma didn't feel that he would be so unbearable, but after the teacher's reminder, he put away the contempt in his heart. Yamanaka-sensei, I understand. Seeing that the three of them were all dignified and ready to go all out, Yamanaka Inoichi had some regret in his heart. Should I not have reminded them? With their strength, it's a massacre if they get serious. If they are careless, it can be regarded as training. Oh, poor mountain bandits, I'm sorry for you. Chapter 78. Within the borders of the country of fire, within a lush forest. A group of 4 people galloped and jumped on the trees. Yamanaka-sensei, isn't this an era of peace? Why are there still so many bandits? Thinking of the long list of commissions he saw on the task list, Asma was somewhat puzzled. Kurenai also said, although I knew the outside world wouldn't be too peaceful, I didn't expect it to be the same in the country of fire. The country of fire is vast. Even with the suppression of the daimyo's army, it's impossible to eliminate all the bandits in the country with our wood-leaf ninja. Yamanaka Inoichi was somewhat helpless. Compared to those small countries, our country of fire is actually very peaceful. Garashi sighed softly, even chaos is regarded as peace. Such a world must be sick. Asma joked. Is this the occupational disease of medical ninja? You want to cure everything you see. Garashi shook his head gently. People are sick, there are medical ninjas to treat them. The world is sick, who should we find to treat it? Asma was full of confidence. Of course it's up to us. But before he could finish, Yamanaka Inoichi reminded, here we are. The 4 of them had passed through the forest and there was a mountain village in front of them. Seeing this, the 3 of them also quieted down and listened carefully to their sensei's arrangement. According to the description of the task, there are a total of 47 bandits in this mountain village, and we can't rule out the possibility of missing or hiding. Yamanaka Inoichi glanced at the 3 of them and smiled slightly. How to distribute and attack, it's up to you 3 to discuss. With that, he consciously walked to the side and quietly watched their performance. He also wanted to know what kind of conclusion his 3 genius disciples would come to. However, Asma's first sentence almost made him break his waist. I think it can be like this. Garashi is in the middle, I will go left, Kurenai will go right, no one is allowed to grab the opponent. Kurenai looked at him contemptuously. You know that Garashi and I ended the battle quickly with genjutsu, so you said that, right? Asma said righteously, "It's because I'm slow that you should let me find more feeling." Red blinked her eyes blankly. Was it an illusion? Why do I feel that Asma's tone is somewhat proud? Seeing that they were still seriously discussing, Yamanaka Inoichi coughed twice. Cough, have you forgotten the key points of infiltration and assassination in the ninja manual? Asma said righteously, as long as everyone is dead, isn't it a perfect infiltration? That sounds reasonable. Of course not. Yamanaka Inoichi was a little crazy. He could guarantee that if he wasn't worried that this was Naruto-sama's teaching, he would definitely let Asma understand what the depth of love is. Cough. Garashi, what do you think? After calming down, Yamanaka Inoichi looked at him expectantly. I don't really care, but... Garashi smiled and said, since it was Asma's suggestion, let's just listen to him. Asma patted Garashi's shoulder. Good brother. Garashi smiled helplessly. He didn't know that the stories he told in class in order to get closer to him in the first grade would really lead a certain second-generation kid astray. He had to take the blame for this. At the same time in the village. Brother Sigma, there's news from Woodleaf. The bearded bandit said. The one you bribed from Woodleaf to help us pay attention to the mission bounty? The one-eyed man sitting on the main seat asked. Yes, it's him. The bearded man nodded again and again. He said that someone has entrusted the mission to eliminate us. Hearing this, the surrounding bandits were a little panicked. That's Woodleaf, ranked first among the 5 great ninja villages. Damn, which bastard entrusted it. What should we do? Should we hurry up and break up? Quiet. The one-eyed man shouted discontentedly and then asked, how much is the bounty? It's 60,000. Only 60,000. Sigma sneered. According to the information we heard, 60,000 is only below average among their sea-level missions. This kind of mission is generally only accepted by genin. Hearing this, the bandits who were frightened by Woodleaf's fame also relaxed. So it's just a genin, that kind of ninja who only knows 3 body techniques is not much stronger than us. That's right, it's not like we didn't kill those ninjas in the country of Kawa. The bearded man quickly praised. Brother Sigma is worthy of being the man who will become the bandit king, a mere ninja. However, Sigma stared at him. I just told you not to panic, but we still have to run. The bandits were a little confused. Brother Sigma, Konoha is different from a small ninja village like Tangin. There are 2 kinds of genin teams. One is pure genin, and the other is led by Chunin Jounin. If it's the latter, we have no ability to resist at all. Sigma looked at them coldly. So, after this last mission, we will go to the Wind Country. The bandits were a little hesitant. Boss, the Wind Country is also one of the 5 major countries. Idiot. Only the 5 major countries have money like the country of Kawa. We can't rob 10 times as much as the country of fire. Sigma said calmly, as for why the Wind Country is the largest, and the strength of the ninja village is the lowest among the 5 major countries, as long as we don't go too far, those ninjas won't have time to care about us. As expected of Brother Sigma. After this last mission we will... Suddenly there was an explosion outside the hall. Sigma's face was gloomy. They won't come so soon, right? Let's go out and see. The bandits walked out of the hall uneasily, and then they saw 3 children standing outside. Only 3 people? Thinking of Brother Sigma's explanation, the bandits were relieved. As long as there's no legendary Chunin. Sigma took 2 steps forward and pulled out his sword. You are Woodleaf's ninjas? Asma held his chin. You don't seem surprised? Sigma looked at him. Don't underestimate the bandits. If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened. Garashi tilted his head. Are these your last words? Sigma's face was cold. I've killed 56 arrogant guys like you. Before he finished speaking, a huge fireball flew towards them. The bandits wanted to escape, but they found that they couldn't control their bodies, and they could only watch themselves being engulfed by the flames. Seeing this, Sigma felt his hands and feet were cold and he screamed, Impossible, how can they be genin? On a tree in the distance, Yamanaka Inoichi looked strange. Is this considered infiltration? It should be, right? Chapter 79. Mountain Mist. Boom. With a single punch, a huge crater appeared on the flat ground. Looking at the little guy standing in the hole, the giant boar's eyes showed a trace of fear. Don't come here again, do you understand? Garashi's voice was gentle and soft, but in the giant boar's ears, it was like a demon's whisper. Just as it was about to escape back to the familiar warmth of the forest, it heard the terrible voice behind it. Before you go, please fill up this hole. Umph, umph. The giant boar hummed a few times and began to fill up the hole. On the side, Asma couldn't help but be speechless. I was thinking about how to make it understand our words. It seems that violence is the best way to communicate. Kurenai turned to look at him. Why do you sound like you have a lot of feelings? Asma waved his hand. I didn't know that smoking is harmful to health, but after being caught by the old man, I understood. Kurenai's mouth twitched. I always feel that the health you speak of is not the same as the health people speak of. On the other side, Garashi clapped his hands. Well, the mission to expel the beast is completed. Asma said excitedly, this time it's my turn to choose the mission. For Garashi and the other two, even a sea-level mission was not difficult at all. In the past 5 months, they have completed 97 sea-level missions. If it weren't for the fact that they were interspersed with some relatively long escort and investigation missions, the number would have been even higher. Even for the B-level missions, they have completed 3 of them with their Yamanaka-sensei's identity. Just as they were discussing using their accumulated contribution points to exchange for a B-level ninjutsu, an inverted straight monster came to them. Garashi-sensei, good morning. Do you want to walk with me? Bushy Eyebrows asked with one hand upside down and the other hand giving a thumbs up. No, we still have to go turn in the mission. Garashi firmly refused. Although he didn't have the burden of being an idol, he didn't want his image to be destroyed. You've completed another mission. Metkai's voice was full of envy and immediately refreshed. I still have a long way to go. In order to reward myself for recognizing reality, I'll add 2,000 push-ups this morning. Asma's eyes widened. Are you sure this is a reward for yourself? Of course, this is hot-blooded youth. Metkai raised his shining mouth and suddenly remembered something. By the way, Sensei Yamanaka-sensei, Jonin seems to be looking for you. Is there another mission? The 3 of them looked at each other, suddenly excited. Naruto's office. Yamanaka-sensei, Yamanaka-sensei, Yamanaka-senseis, Yamanaka-sensei, Yamanaka-Yamanaka, Yamanaka-sensei. Difficult task. Asuma's eyes lit up and immediately cheered. Old man, Hokage-sama is great. Don't be happy too early, this mission is not so easy to complete. Sandame took out his smoking gun and introduced, you need to escort a batch of emergency supplies to the grass country. If you proceed normally, the mission level is B. Sandame's voice paused and his eyes suddenly became serious, but if there are changes, the mission is likely to be upgraded to A. Hearing this, everyone's breathing quickened. A. Under normal circumstances, only a Jonin is qualified to take on an A-level mission. Even Yamanaka frowned. Naruto-sama. Although the 3 of them are geniuses, it's too early to take on such a dangerous mission. I know, so I specifically asked you to come here today to ask for your opinion. Sandame raised the brim of his hat. You don't have to rush to give me an answer, first listen to me in detail. The grass country is our ally, and at the same time, it is located on the border between the fire country and the earth country. Its geographical location is particularly important. The 4 listened carefully, and they all understood that the so-called ally was just an official term on the surface. The real situation was actually a subordinate country under the control of Woodleaf. But recently, there have been some subtle changes in the commission from the grass country. At the same time, they have ordered a lot more military supplies from Woodleaf than usual. Yamanaka's eyes were dignified. Military supplies? Explosive charms, kunai, shurikens, military food pills, and so on. According to them, it's to deal with the increasingly rampant bandits and rebellious ninjas in the grass country. Sandame nodded slightly and immediately showed a worried look. If it's really to deal with bandits and rebellious ninjas, it's okay, but I'm afraid that these supplies will eventually flow to another place. Yamanaka asked, are you worried that the rock Crypsis is behind this? Sandame sighed. If the grass country really falls to the rock Crypsis, once a war breaks out, Woodleaf will be in a very passive situation. However, there is no actual evidence to prove all this, so your hidden mission is to inquire about information. Yamanaka frowned. If the grass country really falls to the rock Crypsis, then this mission is too dangerous. Sandame shook his head. Of course there will be danger, but it's not as serious as you think. Inoki has always been insidious and forbearing. With his character, he will only hide behind the scenes and reap the benefits. It's absolutely impossible for him to take the initiative to ignite a war. I understand all this, but... Yamanaka asked in a deep voice, why them? Because they are all geniuses and Asma is even my son. Sandame's face was rarely cold. Only by letting them go Rock Crypsis won't be suspicious. Yamanaka couldn't refute, because he also knew that such a decision was the right one. Yamanaka-sensei, don't worry. Asuma himself was full of confidence. It's just to inquire about information, nothing will happen. Yamanaka Inoichi's eyes twitched wildly. Because of what you said, I'm even more worried. Garashi said, in fact, Naruto asked us to accept the mission because of the Flying Thunder God. It's because the previous missions were too easy. I've never used the Flying Thunder God in an official mission. Not many people know that I can use the Flying Thunder God, so Rock Crypsis shouldn't be able to get this information. In other words, if the situation develops to a point of no return, we can use the Flying Thunder God technique to quickly escape. Sandaime nodded slowly. He narrowed his eyes and asked, tell me your final answer. Do you want to accept this mission? Seeing all three of them looking at him with firm eyes, Yamanaka Inoichi could only smile bitterly. We'll take this task. Chapter 80. 3 days later, early in the morning. At the door of the mission center. Yamanaka Inoichi reminded with a serious face, check to see if all the necessary supplies are complete? Explosive charms, flash grenades, shurikens, blood-boosting pills, soldier food pills. Shushi checked his toolkit without hesitation. Asuma, who was listening from the side, was stunned. Why did you bring so many things, Shushi? Also, why did you bring blood-increasing pill as a medical ninja? Garashi shook his head gently. It's better to be prepared. Who can guarantee that these things won't be used in battle? Also, even if I'm a medical ninja, there will always be a time when I run out of chakra, or it's too late to make hand seals. That seems to be the case. Asuma clapped his hands. Wait for me, I'll go buy it now. No need, I brought 2 more. Garashi stopped him and took out a small bottle and handed it over. Ah, Garashi, you know me best. Asuma didn't feel awkward at all and took it. Garashi smiled helplessly and then looked at Kurenai. Kurenai, what about you? Kurenai put her hands behind her back. Hee, I'm not as reckless as Asuma. Garashi still sent the small bottle over. I made this myself, and the effect should be slightly better than the average blood-increasing pill. Then I'll take it too. Kurenai happily accepted it and then took out a small cloth bag and handed it to Garashi. Garashi, this is also the soldier food pill I made myself. Thank you, it seems that I'm lucky in this mission. Seeing Garashi accept the soldier food pill she made, Kurenai was happy, and then she saw a palm open to her. What's wrong? Soldier food pill? Kurenai's mouth twitched slightly. Why do you think you have it too? Asuma was distressed. Garashi made 2 for us, how can you only make 1? Hong rolled her eyes at him. What about you? Have you made anything for us? Asuma froze and asked weakly, are the cigarettes that I made myself okay? Golden binding technique. Garashi, save me. Looking at the fight between the disciples, Yamanaka Inoichi's mouth also showed a smile. It's good to be young. At this moment, a somewhat stout merchant ran towards them. Are you the ninjas who are escorting us back to the land of grass? I'm really sorry for making everyone wait. We actually just arrived. That's good, that's good. The stout merchant nodded again and again, looking very friendly. I am Shigeru Kitahara. Thank you for your hard work over the next few days. Yamanaka Inoichi replied, you are too polite. This is what we should do. Our caravan has already gathered at the gate of the village. I'll go and arrange it first. When you are ready, you can leave at any time. After that, he ran in the direction he came from. When he left, Asuma whispered, this time the employer is really easy to talk to. I feel that he is a little afraid of us. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. Of course he has to be polite. After all, ninjas killing their employers is not unheard of. Let's go, don't let our employer wait too long. Counting the caravan's own guards, there were more than 50 people. Such a number was enough to make some mountain bandits flinch. At least in the land of fire, the caravan was unimpeded all the way. But on the 3rd day, after entering the land of grass, in just a few kilometers of travel, they encountered 3 waves of bandits. Especially the 3rd wave, even ninjas appeared. Looking at the battle ahead, Kitahara Shigeru's hands and feet trembled a little. Carefully weighing his words, he asked, Yamanaka Jonin, this time there seems to be ninjas among the bandits. Isn't it inappropriate to let those little ninjas deal with it alone? Yamanaka Inoichi smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Kitahara-sama, you may have some misunderstandings about the strength of Woodleaf Genin. Don't worry, just watch quietly. In the field, Garashi and the other two were cutting the grass. Although there were ninjas among the enemies and there were warriors like the Land of Iron who could use chakra, the ninjas of the 5 major countries and the ninjas of the small countries were not the same concept. Not to mention, Garashi and the other two were absolute geniuses among the 5 major countries' ninjas. In just a short while the enemy died out amidst howls of despair. These bandits are too weak. I only used a great fireball to scare them. Asuma grumbled, not enjoying himself to the fullest. Yes, I feel like throwing a few shurikens can drive them away. Kurenai nodded. Garashi shook his head helplessly. The enemies are already dead, let's leave them some dignity. In the caravan, Kitahara Shigeru and the others widened their eyes. Too powerful? Is this the power of Woodleaf Genin? Why do I feel that the Chunin of Kusagakure is not necessarily as powerful as them? The Chunin who escorted us was injured halfway and died shortly after reaching the Land of Fire. The previous 2 waves of bandits weren't too many, so they couldn't see anything. However, the group of enemies earlier was already considered a famous bandit in the grass country. Even so, they were still defeated by the 3 children as if they were vegetables. As a caravan they have seen ninjas before, but those ninjas in their impression didn't seem to have this kind of strength at all. Thinking of this, everyone became more enthusiastic. After going on the road again, the tense atmosphere in the caravan became much more relaxed. On the side, Asuma was a little depressed. There are too many bandits in the land of grass. Now I wonder if the old man's judgment is wrong. Yamanaka and Oichi laughed. If their arms and supplies are really bought to deal with the bandits, then we don't have to worry. Yes, the most important thing is that the village is not threatened. Asuma also gave up the idea of upgrading the mission and smiled, but it would be better if we could meet some bandits with Chunin. That kind of large-scale bandits is not so easy to meet. Just as Yamanaka and Oichi was explaining, Shushi suddenly said, "More robbers are coming and there are more of them than before." Asuma said excitedly, "There really are." Yamanaka and Oichi looked weird. I shouldn't have awakened any strange attributes, right? At this time, everyone also saw the situation in front of them. A large group of ferocious-looking bandits were chasing after a delicate-looking youth. Looking at the forehead protector on the boy's head, he seemed to be a ninja from Kusagakure. The boy also noticed the situation here and quickly changed his direction while shouting, "You run, don't worry about me." However, the bandits stopped chasing for a while. Haha, this kid seems to have helped us find a group of fat sheep. Eat meat first, revenge next time. In the trembling caravan, Garashi and the other 2 looked at each other and exchanged glances. Why do I feel like you've said this before, Garashi? Chapter 81. Seeing that the bandits were no longer chasing him, the Kusagakure boy turned back. "You scum, don't drag unrelated people into this." The bandit leader sneered, "Little ninja, don't think too highly of yourself. For us, hatred is never the first thing." The Kusagakure boy shouted angrily, "Damn it, I will throw you all in prison." Seeing this situation, the bandits laughed and ridiculed him. "Prison? We are so scared." "Don't laugh, do you think you will have a future?" In the caravan, Kurenai whispered, "These developments seem to be the same as the stories you told before, Garashi." Garashi narrowed his eyes. "It's still a little different, at least these bandits don't seem to be acting." Asuma was also nervous. "Have we been discovered? Are there rock Crypsis ninjas lying in ambush around?" Garashi shook his head slightly. "It should be a routine test, otherwise it won't be these bandits." Asuma nodded and asked, "What should we do?" "Let's just follow the normal development." Garashi paused and added, "Rock Crypsis is likely to know our information, so don't deliberately hide your strength. Of course, I'm talking about the strength you usually show." "Understood." On the other side, the bandits seemed to be beginning to get impatient. "Enough said, let's send them to hell." These caravans didn't cry and beg for mercy. It's really strange. The Kusagakure boy rushed up angrily. "Damn it, I won't let you do this." Fire release, heavenly prison flame sword. Seeing the other party waving a flame sword, the bandits suddenly scattered and fled. "Be careful of his flame." "What about the archers?" "Shoot." Asuma was a little surprised. "This Kusagakure ninja is quite powerful, so are we going to fight?" "Let's start." Fire release, great fireball technique. Magic, Fox's Mind, X2. Although it was only a C-class ninjutsu, under the skillful cooperation of Garashi and the other 2, the bandits didn't have time to react and nearly half of them were killed. To be able to use such a powerful ninjutsu so quickly, is there a jonin among the enemy? The bandit exclaimed in horror. Asma, who was in the middle of making hand seals, was stunned. Fireball jutsu is considered a powerful ninjutsu? Are these bastards mocking me? Thinking of this, his hand seals sped up. Seeing that these bandits were either swallowed by the flames or fell down like they lost their souls, the Kusagakure boy also showed a trace of shock in his eyes. So powerful, their Jonin didn't even make a move. I'm already considered the most powerful genius in Kusanagi, but with Leaf's 3 people are no weaker than me. Is this the strength of the great country? Trying to suppress the complicated thoughts in his mind, he also rushed up and joined the mowing team. At night, the bonfire crackled. I'm really sorry for the trouble, the Kusagakure boy said with embarrassment. My name is Wuwei, I'm a genin of Kusagakure. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. My name is Yamanaka Inoichi, and these 3 are my disciples, Shimizu Garashi, Kurenai, and Asma. They are all genin like you. Wuwei was amazed and said enviously, you guys are really powerful. I'm a few years older than you, but I'm only a genin. Aha, it's just SOSO. Asma, who was reminded, said, by the way, San, where are your companions? Wuwei shook his head with a wry smile. The number of ninjas in Kusagakure is limited, and we can't team up like you. Is it so difficult? Asma touched his head, inexplicably feeling like he was in the countryside. Garashi asked, well, San, why are those bandits chasing you? I seem to have heard them mention hatred. Hearing Garashi mention this issue, Wuwei became a little lonely. Most of them were once prisoners of the Ghost Light Castle, and my clan was the prison guard who supervised them. Ghost Light Castle? Kurenai was a little confused. Is this the prison of your Kusagakure? Wuwei's face was slightly gloomy. This kind of thing you people of the 5 major countries don't know? Yamanaka Inoichi explained, Ghost Light Castle was built by the Kusagakure village, and it was a prison for ninjas who committed crimes. Then why did you entrust Kusagakure? Asma understood halfway. This kind of dangerous prison, of course, can't be placed in the territory of a major country. After thinking it through, he awkwardly changed the topic and asked, how did these people escape? Is it because of the war? Garashi sighed softly. His voice was gentle and soft, as if it could trigger the most painful memories in people's hearts. Yes, it's because of the war. Wuwei's handsome face became distorted. The war spread to Ghost Light Castle, part of the prison was destroyed, and the prisoners killed the prison guards and escaped. Yamanaka Inoichi thought with a dignified face, their clan's fire release can imprison the enemy's chakra. It's reasonable to say that even if some of the prisoners escaped, it's impossible to kill the prison guards, unless the prison guards who imposed the restraints on those prisoners happen to be affected by the war, or there are other ninjas involved. Isn't it funny? He was supposed to be a prison guard for those big countries, but he was casually abandoned by them. Even a dog wouldn't. Halfway through his sentence, Wu Wei suddenly realized something. Wait, what's wrong with me? How did I become so irrational? Was it stimulated by their talent? Noticing the complex expressions on their faces, Wu Wei quickly shook his head with a bitter smile, making a painful and confused gesture. Sorry, I lost my mind a little. However, we can only accept things that are forced upon us without even knowing the reason. Then, we have to continue living without even knowing the reason. Perhaps this is the fate of creatures like us. Fate? Believing in this kind of thing will only make you weak. Garashi's tone was firm and powerful. I always believed that we were born to change the world. Oh, is that so? Wu Wei reluctantly squeezed out a smile and said with some sarcasm, as expected of a ninja from Woodleaf, you can easily say things that people like us who live in the gutter can't even think about. I will say this because I have also wandered in the darkness. What did you say? When I was 3 years old, the war destroyed everything I once had. I understand the pain and despair, but I also know that if I become dispirited and depressed because of it, my family, who became stars, will cry because of it. Shushi was lost in his own thoughts as he reminisced about the past. When I was 3 years old, the war destroyed everything I had. I understand the pain and despair. Even if I live in the gutter, I still have the right to look up at the stars. Wu Wei's eyes were shocked and he muttered to himself, look up at the stars? Can people like us really do it? Chapter 82. At night, insects and birds were quiet. Wu Wei slept on the ground, but he couldn't fall asleep. Fake, it's all fake. What starry sky? It's simply an unrealistic fantasy. Personal fate may be changed, but the future of the grass country has long been doomed. No matter how hard we try, we can only struggle to survive in the cracks of the big countries. But, is it really useless? If I can become a strong man like Hanzo of the Rain Country, maybe I can protect the village. Impossible, my talent may be the strongest in the grass village, but any three of Woodleaf's genin are not weaker than me. It's impossible for me to become that kind of strong man with such ordinary talent. What should I do? Wu Wei's eyes were confused, looking at the boundless starry sky and talking to himself. Father, if it's you, on the other side, Garashi was resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the bottom of his heart. Don't be nervous, I'm Yamanaka Inoichi, and now I'm using the Yamanaka clan's secret technique to communicate with you. Long story short, that Wu Wei seems to be hiding part of his strength. Considering this, he is likely to be an undercover of the rock crypsis. Silence, 1 second, 2 seconds, Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but ask, why don't you talk? By the way, you can talk as long as you think it in your heart. Asma couldn't hold it anymore, and after knowing the method he quickly said, "Ha! I already knew he was undercover." Yamanaka Inoichi was stunned. Already knew? He was only able to judge based on his rich experience. Since when did Asuma have such a keen eye? Asuma chuckled. It's not just me. Even Shushi and Red know about it. Yamanaka Inoichi's body outside his spiritual consciousness couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. So, except for him who didn't know he was exposed, all of us knew and we were all cooperating with him. At this moment he inexplicably felt that the boy named Wu Wei was a little pitiful. Asuma laughed. Who asked him to treat us like fools and fool us? However, Garashi is still the most overboard, tricking him into a daze. Garashi sighed softly. As long as it's a lie, it will be exposed one day. So, I didn't lie to him. However, the truth was sometimes more deceptive than a lie. Red said worriedly, Garashi, then you? Garashi said, don't worry about it. It's because I've wandered around in confusion that I cherish the present even more. I also hope that Senior Wu Wei can walk out of the past. Asma muttered, you're too kind. How can you treat a spy like this? Garashi chuckled. We still don't know what's going on in the grass country, so there's no need to reject a force that can be recruited. Asma exclaimed, wait, even the spies have come out. Could it be that the grass nation hasn't been corrupted yet? Yamanaka Inoichi said, first of all, we can't rule out that rock crypsis deliberately created the illusion that Kusanagi is controlled by them. Secondly, it's also possible that some of Kusanagi's forces have turned to rock crypsis. If we rush to make a judgment, it's likely that we'll push the forces that were originally leaning toward Woodleaf to the enemy. So, our main task is still to inquire about intelligence. I see. Yamanaka Inoichi added, also, Garashi, you can try to get information from the boy named Wu Wei, but be careful. Garashi said, I know what to do. 2 days later the group finally arrived at Kusanagi village. Unlike what Garashi and others thought at first, Kusanagi village was not desolate, and it even had a sense of prosperity. This change surprised several people. There are so many bandits and robbers in the grass country. Why does Kusanagi village look so harmonious? Asma asked while touching his head. Because those big people don't care about the life and death of ordinary people at all. Wu Wei sneered, the only thing they will do is to use the interests of the grass country to please other countries around them and use so-called diplomatic means to maintain their own rule. After that he shook his head again, sorry, I was a little angry. By the way, since you have arrived at Kusanagi village, let's separate here. They didn't ask him to stay but asked, Senpai, where is your home? We want to invite you to dinner before we leave. You saved me, I should be the one to invite you. Wu Wei said with a smile, as for accommodation, I actually don't have a place to live yet. After all, Goryu Castle is on a nearby island. If you want to find me, you can go to the hostel in the north of the village. I should rest there. Then we'll go to hand in the task first, goodbye Wu Wei senpai. When the caravan left, Wu Wei put away the smile on his face. They don't even know Goryu Castle. It seems that they didn't come for that matter. Under the leadership of Kitahara Shigeru, Garashi and the others came to an extremely luxurious mansion. Yamanaka Jonin, the one who ordered this batch of materials from Woodleaf, is the Minister of Finance of our grass country. In order to avoid the covetous eyes of those bandits, we had to use the name of a caravan. Yamanaka Inoichi wasn't surprised. This was something that had been explained before accepting the task. Walking into the mansion, a middle-aged man with a pair of bright eyes was already waiting. Friends from Woodleaf, it's been hard on you. The middle-aged man invited them into the living room with great enthusiasm. I'm the Minister of Finance of the grass country, Ueno Shin, and the initiator of this commission. As soon as he came up, he began to pour out his grievances. Our grass country is suffering, we're really suffering. After explaining how hard the people, ninjas and officials of the grass country were suffering, he changed the topic and mentioned the deep friendship between Woodleaf and the grass country. Finally, he raised the topic with tears. For the peace of the shinobi world, for the friendship between the two countries, I'm here to ask Woodleaf to help us with another batch of materials. Asma looked at him with admiration. Arms and materials are extremely important strategic resource reserves. It's good enough to sell them to you, but this time you're planning to get them for free? Yamanaka Inoichi tapped the table lightly. I will tell Naruto-sama about your request. However, I have a proposal. Ueno Shin smiled brightly. Please say. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled. Why don't you directly entrust Woodleaf's ninja to clean up the bandits? This way, not only do you not have to worry about the materials being robbed, but you can also ensure the safety of your ninja. Ueno Shin's smile froze, and the next moment he sighed. No, after all, this is our grass country's internal affairs. If we ask Woodleaf's ninja to do it, it may be misunderstood by our people. It doesn't matter if we're scolded, but how can we let our allies bear a bad reputation? Yamanaka Inoichi didn't insist. Is that so? It seems that I didn't think about it. Ueno Shin smiled brightly. Haha, Yamanaka Jonin is also thinking about us. Yamanaka Inoichi looked outside the door. It seems that it's getting late. Let's go back to Woodleaf early. At this time, Asma shouted according to the previous discussion. Yamanaka-sensei, let's go back to Woodleaf tomorrow. It's rare to come out, it's a pity to go back like this. Seeing that Yamanaka Inoichi was a little embarrassed, Ueno Shin also persuaded, this little ninja is very reasonable. It's rare to come out, let's experience our grass country style. As he said that, he had already arranged, although my place is a bit simple, it's not a problem for a few more guests. Yamanaka Jonin, you guys can stay here for the night. Chapter 83. Looking at the magnificent decoration in the room, Asma couldn't help but complain, this is really simple. My house is not so simple. Hong Shin nodded in agreement. He also said that he was hard. I also want to be as hard as him. At this time, Yamanaka Inoichi in the next room created an online chat room again. You all be careful, this Ueno Shin is likely to have a problem. Asma agreed, I think so too. Thinking that Asma and the others had seen Wuwei's concealment before, Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but examine. How did you see it? Speaking of this, Asma suddenly became excited. First of all, when he talked about how hard he was, he shook his head, which probably means that he didn't believe it himself. Secondly, when he explained why it didn't work, his body language and eyes were very uncoordinated, and several times they pointed in the opposite direction. By the way, he came up with a long speech and led the topic to materials. It's likely that he was worried that we would ask something difficult to answer, so he deliberately took the right to speak in his own hands. After talking for about 10 minutes, he added reluctantly, of course, these analyses don't count. They can only be used as a reference. Yamanaka Inoichi was stunned and took a long time to recover. Did Naruto-sama teach you these things? It's Garashi. Seeing that the teacher was shocked, Asma felt refreshed. Didn't he build a psychology club? Then he shared some small details of his usual observations with us. Although it can't be said to be completely accurate, many times he can guess other people's thoughts. Yamanaka Inoichi felt that 10,000 mythological beasts were rushing through his heart. How could he feel that the valuable experience he had summed up in missions wasn't as thorough as Garashi's observation? He also knew about those clubs, but he never cared about them and only thought of them as children playing house. But now he really wanted to ask, is the club still recruiting? Thinking of this, Yamanaka Inoichi coughed twice and said, your analysis is very good, but I'm worried that your observation is still incomplete. After you go back, you can tell me more about the content in detail, and I will give you professional guidance from the perspective of an intelligence ninja. Red asked suspiciously, really? Why would I lie to you? Yamanaka Inoichi said and quickly changed the topic. Ahem, there's only one day. We can't delay any longer. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You guys go out with the excuse of going shopping. Garashi, follow that way. Asma and Kurenai, you two go to the mission center of Kusanagi village. I'll talk to Shin Ueno and see if I can get anything out of him. But no matter what, you have to gather here before 6 p.m., understood? Understood. Then let's begin. At the same time at the North Street Hostel. Wu Wei, tell me the information you have gathered. A short but muscular man stood in front of Wu Wei and said, "Yes, Yangdo-sama." Wu Wei stood straight. "According to my observations in the past 2 days, they didn't have any abnormal reaction, but they were amazed by the number of bandits in the Kusanagi village. As for Enigmo Castle, only that Jonin has some impression of it." "Oh, it seems that wood leaf is getting more and more dull." Yang Do sneered and then nodded slowly, "But it's also true that if wood leaf really noticed our actions, they wouldn't have sent them to escort the supplies." Hearing Yang Do's words, Wu Wei's eyes flashed. "That wood leaf Jonin hasn't made a move and I can't judge his strength. However, the strength of those 3 wood leaf Jonins doesn't seem to be weaker than me." "Not weaker than you?" Yang Doji smiled and said, "Those 3 people, even among the genin of the rock village, it's hard to find anyone stronger than them." As a Jonin of Rock Crypsis, he actually doesn't think highly of these ninjas of small countries. And Wood Leaf, one of the 5 great ninja villages, he can ridicule them, but Emir Kusanagi is thinking too highly of themselves. Wu Wei clenched his fists slightly, but his face still looked amazed. "Are the 3 of them very powerful?" Yang Do's eyes became serious. According to the information, the little girl should be the weakest one, but even so, her genjutsu is close to the level of a chunin. After all, her father is the strongest genjutsu master in Wood Leaf. As for that Asma, he is the son of Sandame Naruto. What? Sandame Naruto's son? Wu Wei couldn't believe that the guy who didn't look too smart was Naruto's son. Well, this alone is enough to show his strength. However, compared with Shimizu Garashi, the 2 of them are nothing. Wu Wei was shocked. Is he the son of first Naruto? Well, the timing doesn't seem to match. He doesn't have any special identity. In fact, he was originally just an unremarkable orphan left behind by the war. Wu Wei was in a trance. Shimizu Garashi seemed to have told him this before. Yang Do looked dignified, but his talent is too terrifying. He developed an A-level ninjutsu at the age of 6 years old. A-level ninjutsu. Wu Wei swallowed hard. He felt powerless. Is this a real genius? The entire Kusanagi village may not have an A-level ninjutsu, but someone else can develop it at the age of 6. This gap made him completely lose the confidence to compete. Yang Do seemed to see the ambition in Wu Wei's eyes. He took the opportunity to beat him. Do you understand the gap between you? A small shinobi village should have the awareness of a small shinobi village. Wu Wei's face turned blue and red. He finally lowered his head. I'm too shallow, but since they are all geniuses, should we eliminate the threat now? Yang Do was a little moved, but in the end he refused. The growth of a genius also takes time. Moreover, Wood Leaf's enemies are not just us. If we leave them here, it will only lead to Wood Leaf's crazy revenge, and then the other 3 shinobi villages will take advantage of it. Wu Wei also woke up. Rock Crypsis doesn't want to eliminate the threat in advance, but the problem is that the time is too sensitive. Once the war starts in advance, it will only let the other 3 shinobi villages take advantage of it. This is not in the interest of Rock Crypsis. Yang Do was a little impatient. He said, "In short, you don't have to worry about the next thing, just do your own thing and continue to attract the bandits for us." About Enigmo Castle. Wu Wei lowered his head halfway. "Yes, I understand." Chapter 84. Yang Do knew that this little ninja from Kusanagi village had other ideas, but he didn't care. The powerful Rock Crypsis wasn't something that a weak Kusanagi village could spy on. So, seeing that Wu Wei agreed, he also nodded with satisfaction. "Don't be impatient, there will be a day when you get your revenge." With that, he turned around and left the room. Revenge? Wu Wei's eyes were full of sarcasm, but he didn't do anything else. He just sat quietly on the chair. No one knew what he was thinking. Almost 2 hours later, there was a sudden movement outside the window. Wu Wei quietly opened the window. A pigeon was standing by the window, combing its feathers. After seeing Wu Wei, the pigeon spat out a small paper tube hidden in its beak. Although it was a little troublesome, the risk of being found tied to his leg was undoubtedly greater. Wu Wei picked up the paper tube, opened it as fast as he could, and then carefully wrote on the back, and then put the small paper tube back into the pigeon's beak. The whole process took less than a minute. Seeing that no one found it, Wu Wei was relieved and his eyes were slightly crazy. Oh, this is revenge. After doing all this, he finally sat back on the bed leisurely and began today's practice. A few minutes later, just as Wu Wei's restless heart gradually calmed down, a greeting suddenly woke him up. "Wu Wei, Senpai, we meet again. Wu Wei opened his eyes and saw Garashi sitting on the chair with a smile. When did he? Wu Wei's mind flashed many thoughts and then he jumped out of bed with a smile. Garashi, why are you here? Where are Asma and the others? Garashi smiled. I'm alone because I have something to ask Senpai for help. Hearing that Garashi was alone, Wu Wei relaxed a little. As long as I can do it, there is absolutely no problem. That's great. Garashi smiled as he took out a small paper tube. Actually, I want to ask Senior to help me translate these codes. The smile on Wu Wei's face suddenly froze, but he reacted in the next moment. Haha, shouldn't you go to the signal team for this kind of thing? I think it would be faster to find the person directly. The person involved? I was too careless. Garashi smiled and said, then can I trouble you to explain? Mr. Undercover. Wu Wei stopped smiling and looked around. Is this a sound sealing enchantment? That's really cautious. Garashi shrugged helplessly. We have to be prepared in advance. But you were still careless. Wu Wei smirked. You probably didn't expect this, but everyone in this hostel is from Rock Crypsis. I know. You know? Wu Wei's confident tone faltered, and he looked at Shueisha in surprise. Then do you know that I can rush out of the room if I take a few steps forward? Although it may be rude to say this, but... Garashi's tone was gentle as he looked at him with a smile. In front of me, you won't have any room to resist. Wu Wei's heart suddenly surged with anger. Although he now knows that his talent may be far inferior to Garashi, he is also a genius of Kusanagi, and he has been practicing for a few years more than Garashi. If it weren't for hiding his strength, he would have been promoted to Chunin. No matter how bad it is, it's impossible that he can't even rush out of the room. Then let's try, boom. Before his voice fell, he knelt on the floor powerlessly. Then, like a wooden doll, he was manipulated to sit in front of Garashi. How is it possible? I didn't even take a step out. This kind of printing speed, this kind of illusion I can't resist. Although his body was controlled and he couldn't speak, Wu Wei's eyes were full of shock. He thought that he had overestimated his opponent enough, and from the beginning he only wanted to escape a few steps away. But now it seems that not only he underestimated his opponent, but even Yang Do underestimated him. This is not a genius who hasn't grown up, but a monster in sheep's clothing. Now that I've exposed my strength, will I be killed? Wu Wei thought in his heart, but he wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt a kind of perverted pleasure. Yang Do, if you know what you are letting go of, you will regret the decision you made today. With a snap of his fingers, Wu Wei regained control of his body. Garashi shook the small paper tube and asked, Senpai, can you tell me what this code is now? Wu Wei rubbed the place where he just fell and said with a cold face, if I don't even have the awareness of death, I won't be a ninja. Just kill me, I won't say anything. Garashi wasn't angry, he just tapped his fingers on the table. Senpai, do you know the Woodleaf Yamanaka clan? Hearing Garashi mention the Yamanaka clan, Wu Wei's face changed slightly. Seems that you know. Seeing the other party's reaction, Garashi nodded slightly. Unfortunately, Yamanaka-senpai is an excellent jonin of this clan. And I can use genjutsu to control you to find Yamanaka-senpai. This way, in the eyes of the Rock Crypsis, you are betraying them again. How do you think those furious Rock Crypsis ninjas will deal with Kusanagi and your people? Wu Wei clenched his hands angrily. Too despicable. Garashi said lightly, for a ninja, despicable is not a powerful condemnation. Wu Wei helplessly lowered his head. Indeed, ninja wasn't a bright profession, and his own means were completely different from the light. Just as he was about to say the answer, he heard Garashi laugh out loud. What are you laughing at? Wu Wei asked with a dark face. Are you scared? Garashi laughed for a while, then immediately put on a serious face. I said this just to let you know that everything you do can be reflected on others. Wu Wei's face was complicated. Don't you want to know the answer? Garashi knew that the other party's psychological defense had a flaw. Of course I want to know, but I won't use this method to deepen the hatred. Besides, don't you still have the seal? Yu Shangrong smiled. Don't you have the seal? Seal? Wu Wei was stunned, and the part of the memory that was ignored in his mind suddenly returned, and then he looked at Garashi with gritted teeth. You just unlocked a part of the genjutsu. Knowing so many secrets, Rock Crypsis will certainly put a seal on him. In other words, even if he was controlled to appear in front of Yamanaka Inoichi, Rock Crypsis will not suspect him of betrayal, they will only think that he is being held hostage. Thinking of this, Wu Wei's face was very ugly. You did this just to tease me? Garashi slowly shook his head. No, I wanted to see your heart clearly. Heart. Wu Wei was a little confused, but he was too lazy to think more. With the seal, I can't tell you the answer, you can do it now. Chapter 85. Garashi just shook his head. Sometimes the seal can't solve everything. Wu Wei was puzzled. What do you mean? Garashi continued his analysis. The hostel is obviously filled with people from Rock Crypsis, but you used a secret signal to communicate with people outside. It seems that your identity as a spy must be very complicated, right? Wu Wei now understood Garashi's plan. He wanted to deduce the meaning of the secret signal himself. While he was shocked, he could not help but refute. This doesn't mean anything. Maybe the hostel's owner is not here and we have to communicate through birds? Garashi shook his head slightly. When I sneaked in, I eavesdropped. The owner of this hostel is called Black Light. Maybe it's a fake name, but he left more than an hour ago and you checked in 2 hours ago. Wu Wei's lips opened slightly, but he did not speak. Due to the restriction of the seal, he could not say or write down the secret of the spellcaster. However, this level of reaction was enough. Which village did the second person contact you from? Garashi tilted his head. I'm guessing it's still Rock Crypsis? Wu Wei's pupils contracted violently, his eyes filled with shock. Seeing Wu Wei's reaction, Garashi could not help but laugh. It seems that I guessed right. Wu Wei waved his arms vigorously. This doesn't make sense at all. How can you guess like this? Because when I used the illusion to control you just now, I tried to see if I could bypass the seal. I didn't have much hope at first, but the final result surprised me. Garashi rubbed his chin. Without considering the protection of your brain, I can completely break the seal. Perhaps it was because of Garashi's previous display of strength. Wu Wei did not doubt this. He only asked with a complicated expression, then why didn't you do that? The life or death of a spy has no impact on you. Garashi's eyes were calm. Because I saw the desire in your eyes, the desire for the future and change. Wu Wei's mind was shaken, and his thoughts became chaotic. Garashi continued, it's precisely because this seal is too simple that it makes me suspicious. Since you're not good at sealing, why don't you let the sealing class do it? Wu Wei had a strange look on his face. Although the person who put the seal on him was not good at sealing, that person was still a jonin. How could it become so simple in Garashi's words? Garashi didn't care too much about Wu Wei's strange look. After all, the person who taught him the sealing technique didn't even care about Naruto's seal. After a short pause, Garashi continued, the best reason is that he didn't dare to contact the village's sealing class. That's why I'm guessing that he's a member of Rock Crypsis. He might even be the leader of this operation. The shock in Wu Wei's eyes can no longer be described with words. Just based on the information collected in a few minutes, the other party could speculate to this extent. Compared with Garashi, he suspected that he wasn't suitable to be a ninja at all. Garashi wasn't satisfied with this and continued to analyze. Being able to lead so many ninjas to carry out the mission shows that the person should be a very trusted senior member of Rock Crypsis. Even such a person has other ideas, ordinary temptation won't work. And according to my inquiries these days, perhaps only the legend of Ghost Lantern City has this kind of temptation. Wu Wei couldn't help but ask, wait, I've been paying attention to you these days. How come I didn't know that you asked about Ghost Lantern City? Shushi smiled and waved his hand. Your reaction that day was too abnormal. That's why I decided to ask around for information. As for you, is it that difficult for me to avoid you when I know you're a spy? Wu Wei stared. You already knew that I was a spy? Shushi corrected him. To be precise, all of us knew about it on the first day. I'm really not suitable to be a ninja? Wu Wei lowered his head and closed his eyes. The box of bliss that can fulfill people's wishes, only this kind of thing can make a Rock Crypsis Jounin have ideas that shouldn't be. And the reason why you're willing to work for him should be to split Rock Crypsis. I really can't hide anything from you. Wu Wei slowly raised his head, his eyes slightly crazy. Yes, whether it's Rock Crypsis or Woodleaf, it's better to destroy them all. Since that's the mentality, it's not difficult to guess the code. Garashi nodded slightly. Although Rock Crypsis is actively preparing for war, they don't want to be the first to be involved in the war. If I were you, I naturally wouldn't want them to get what they want. I would probably hope that Woodleaf and Rock Crypsis would be involved in the war ahead of time, and it would be best if the other 3 villages took advantage of the opportunity to destroy them. And what you can do is to arouse the desire of the tempted Rock Crypsis Jounin and make him attack us. So, this code probably means that the more talented the person, the better the effect of the sacrifice to the box of bliss. After that, Garashi smiled and looked at Wu Wei. Senpai, did I guess correctly? Wu Wei looked at him in shock, a trace of inexplicable fear in his heart. Although he was shocked by Garashi's strength before, deep down he was still somewhat dismissive. Isn't it just talent? If he had that kind of talent he could do it too. But now he didn't have such thoughts at all. Talent, strength, temperament, intelligence, no matter which aspect, he is strong enough to make people afraid. In this world, is there really such a perfect person like him? Wu Wei couldn't help but think, if he was a Kusanagi, maybe all of this could really be changed. Shaking his head, Wu Wei closed his eyes. Since you have already guessed it, then I am useless, just kill me. Garashi shook his finger. Although Senpai can't say anything about the Rock Crypsis Jounin, but Rock Crypsis's other arrangements and infiltrated forces in the grass country should be able to say. Yes, but why should I tell you? Wu Wei's eyes were indifferent. Don't forget, I want Wood Leaf and Rock Crypsis to be destroyed. Garashi didn't get angry, he just looked straight into his eyes. But have you ever thought that once the war breaks out, the grass country will most likely become the battlefield again? You are dragging them into hell again. No, Kusanagi has no future. Wu Wei shouted. Only by destroying Wood Leaf and Rock Crypsis together can they be resurrected in the ruins. No, you are wrong. Garashi shook his head slowly. There is still hope for Kusanagi. Don't tell me you want to talk about the box of bliss? Wu Wei sneered. That thing is simply a bottomless pit, it can't be filled. I never believe in illusory things like wishes, the hope I am talking about is. Garashi pointed to himself. Me? Wu Wei stared at him. You? Garashi asked with a smile. What do you think of me? Wu Wei was silent for a moment. Even if I stand in the enemy's position, I have to admit that I have never seen anyone as powerful as you. Those arrogant Rock Crypsis, compared to you they are not even sand. Garashi accepted the praise calmly. Then do you think it is possible for me to become Naruto? Wu Wei's eyes bloomed with brilliance but immediately dimmed. Even Naruto can't influence the decision of Rock Crypsis. Then surpass Naruto. Garashi's words were full of strong confidence. Let those who don't understand what peace is hear our voice. Wu Wei's blood was faintly boiling. If it was this man, he could do it. A dreamer can only find his way under the moonlight. His punishment is to be the first to see the dawn. Garashi smiled and invited. So, do you want to try to see the dawn with me? Chapter 86. Wu Wei couldn't help but agree. I understand, although I'm just an ordinary genin, I'll do my best. Don't underestimate yourself, you're not ordinary and you can't be ordinary. Garashi smiled slightly. If you're too ordinary, how can you become the Kage of Kusagakure? Wu Wei's eyes were in a trance. Kage? Garashi nodded. Only when you become the Kage of Kusagakure can you reduce the resistance of what we want to do. Wu Wei's eyes burned with the flame of ambition. I will become the Kage, only then can I become your arm. That's a bit off topic. Garashi laughed. Let's talk about the arrangement of Rock Crypsis. Wu Wei tried to calm his excited heart and also laughed. If the Rock Village knew that the seal that was originally used to keep their secret was secretly changed by that person to keep his secret, they would be so angry that they would vomit blood. It's a pity that I can't see their angry faces. Wu Wei sighed and said, in addition to that person, Rock Crypsis sent 1 Jonin, 5 Chunin and 27 Genin. As for the Kusagakure, I know that nearly half of the high-level officials have been infiltrated. They are the daimyo of the Kusagakure, the Minister of Finance. After listening to Wu Wei's long list of names, Garashi's eyes narrowed. The situation is more serious than I thought. With that, Garashi cleared his residual aura, opened the window, and put the small paper tube back into the beak of the pigeon waiting outside. He used genjutsu to delete part of the pigeon's memory before sending it away. Wu Wei was a little confused. That note is... Garashi calmly closed the window. Don't worry, I have my own plans. Hearing Garashi's words, Wu Wei no longer asked. He now trusts Garashi almost unconditionally. Since Garashi said so, there will be no problem. In addition, I have something to ask you for help. The finance minister's residence. Seeing Garashi return, the 3 people who had been waiting here for a long time finally breathed a sigh of relief. Asma, who was thirsty, immediately shouted, let me tell you what Kurenai and I found first. The mission center has indeed changed. Most of the commission missions are more likely to be given to Rock Crypsis. I suspect that the upper echelons of Kusagakure may have been infiltrated. Yamanaka Inoichi's voice was heavy. In my communication with Shin Ueno, I also discovered a terrible fact. That is, the daimyo of Grass Country may have betrayed Wood Leaf. Garashi agreed. You're right. Other than the daimyo, there's also the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. After listening to Garashi's long list of names, they all fell silent. They didn't suspect anything. With Garashi's cautious and steady nature, he must have confirmed the answer. However, they were still puzzled. That's not right. We're just guessing. How come you already have an answer? Everyone is trying to get information. Why are you so outstanding? Kurenai whispered, That's amazing. Garashi, you've got a lot more information than us. Garashi smiled and accepted the compliment. In addition to this, I also know the layout and strength of rock crypsis in Kusagakure. Asma screamed in horror. Garashi, what did you do to that Wuwei? Why did he even tell you this? Shushi said indifferently, because I instigated his rebellion. They were silent again. To be sent as an undercover by rock crypsis, it means that the other party should be very trusted. Even in the eyes of rock crypsis, it's impossible for him to betray them. How did Shushi manage to instigate a rebellion in just a few hours? As an intelligence ninja, Yamanaka Inoichi almost doubted his life. Was it so easy to get information? Then what was I doing in the past? Bastard. Asma asked blankly, Then is our mission completed? Yamanaka Inoichi smiled bitterly. It should be. He originally wanted to let his disciples see how he completed the mission as a jonin so that they could also experience the joy of flying. But it's just the beginning. How did Garashi lead them all the way to the end? This kind of lying down winning position is too shameful. Then have a good rest tonight and go back tomorrow? Yamanaka-sensei, please wait. Garashi interrupted. Although the information of rock crypsis has been collected, I also found other information in the process. Kurenai asked in surprise. There is other information? Garashi's voice was heavy. Rock crypsis placed 2 jonins in Kusagakure, and the jonin in charge of this operation seems to have some strange thoughts. Yamanaka Inoichi's eyes fluctuated slightly. Garashi, explain it in detail. Garashi said seriously. Simply put, there is a box of bliss that is said to be able to fulfill people's wishes. The rock crypsis jonin believed in this statement and tried to open the box of bliss by sacrificing the power of those prisoners. Of course, his statement to the rock crypsis is to control the prisoners in Kusagakure as a hidden force in the war. Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but interrupt. Wait, Garashi, how do you know? I also learned this from Wuwei. But for such an important thing, shouldn't he have a seal on him? The information he inadvertently revealed is enough for me to deduce the general process, and judging from his reaction, I should not be wrong. Garashi's tone was calm as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Yamanaka Inoichi was once again at a loss. Even the seal can be bypassed? Perhaps it was too much of a shock. Asma was already used to it. He reacted faster than Yamanaka Inoichi and asked, Then can we spread the news and use it to cause internal strife in rock crypsis? You think too highly of him. With the prestige of Tsuchikage in rock crypsis, a jonin can't change anything but. Garashi pondered for a moment. This may be an opportunity to change the situation of Kusagakure. Asma's eyes suddenly lit up. Garashi, you want to take this opportunity to eliminate rock crypsis in Kusagakure. Before his voice fell, Yamanaka Inoichi hurriedly interrupted. No, it's too dangerous. No matter what, the enemy is also 2 jonins and many chunin and genin, and even the prisoners of Hozuki Castle. We can't fight against them at all. Yamanaka-sensei, don't worry, I'm not the kind of hot-blooded brute. Garashi smiled and comforted. Since I said so, I naturally have some preparations. Yes, Garashi must have thought of a way. Asma was encouraging and suddenly realized something was wrong. Wait, Brute isn't talking about me, is he? Thinking of Garashi's consistent performance, Yamanaka Inoichi also calmed down a little. What are you going to do? Garashi methodically analyzed. First of all, Wuwei, as a descendant of the Hozuki Castle clan, he knows the box of bliss best. Therefore, the rock crypsis jonin valued him so much and deliberately set a seal on him. And because of this seal, he most likely won't doubt Wu Wei's words. Hearing this, everyone already understood Garashi's plan. Red Face asked excitedly, Is it to let Wu Wei drive a wedge between them? It's actually very difficult to succeed under normal circumstances, but... Garashi clasped his hands and held his chin. For those who have a guilty conscience, as long as there is a little doubt, it's enough to make them desperate. This is external and the next is internal. Garashi looked at Yamanaka Inoichi with a dignified expression. Yamanaka-sensei, Your clan's psychic secret jutsu should be able to do this. Hearing Garashi's detailed plan, Yamanaka Inoichi's eyes lit up, and finally, even he was moved. If the plan goes smoothly, maybe it's really possible to succeed. In this way we can not only remove the Rock Crypsis' power in Kusanagi, but also let Kusanagi be hated by Rock Crypsis and finally return to our side of Woodleaf. Asuma nodded again and again. Even if the plan fails, we can let Garashi use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to take us away. Yamanaka Inoichi exhaled heavily. Well, I'll go crazy with you once. Chapter 87. At the same time in Hashizuki Castle. In the underground darkroom. A burly middle-aged ninja stood in front of a huge box, gently stroking it, his eyes burning with desire. The legendary treasure of the Six-Paths Sage, wake up quickly and fulfill my wish. Naturally, the box didn't respond, but he didn't care. As long as he thought of the note he received this afternoon, he couldn't help but feel excited. Is the quality of the previous offerings too bad? It doesn't matter, I have found a better replacement, it won't take long. At this time, there was movement above the darkroom. Black Rock-sama, Yangdo-sama is here. I'll go up. Looking at the box of bliss with reluctance, Black Rock put on a smile and went out. Outside. Black Rock-sama, things are basically clear. After seeing Black Rock, Yangdo didn't talk much and went straight to the point. Woodleaf didn't notice our actions. When they leave we can continue. Well? Black Rock pondered a little. Actually, I have a new idea. New idea? That's right, let those Konoha ninjas stay here forever. Black Rock-sama, isn't this too radical? Yangdo was shocked and asked. Haha, you are too steady. If you don't take risks, how can you win the war? Black Rock patted him on the shoulder and laughed. Yangdo frowned. But this way our intentions will be completely exposed. Black Rock waved his hand indifferently. Your idea is still too rigid. If we invite those little ninjas to Rock Crypsis, maybe we can make Woodleaf united with us? Yangdo was still hesitant. But what if Woodleaf is not threatened? Or should we ask Tsuchikage-sama? Black Rock was very unhappy. Are you the leader or am I the leader? By the time you ask, Woodleaf will have already run away. Yangdo could only smile bitterly. Well, I'll let Wuwei invite them, but you still have to be careful of that Yamanaka Inoichi. Black Rock instantly smiled. Don't worry, it's not the first time I've dealt with the Yamanaka clan. As long as I'm careful, their secret spirit jutsu won't work. Yangdo nodded. Woodleaf's Inoshika butterfly combination was indeed powerful, but if it was just one of them, they just had to be a little more careful. Kuroda was about to leave when he hesitated and reminded, Kuroshi-san, the prisoners of Hozuki Castle should be handled with caution. If the other major ninja villages know that we are accommodating these combat forces, it will be troublesome. Blackstone smiled. Don't worry, no one will know. After Yangdo left, the smile on Blackstone's face slowly disappeared. Idiot, do you really think I'm interested in the strength of those prisoners? All I want is their chakra. As for the Tsuchikage? Anoki is old and there should be a more suitable master for him. No, that's not right. As long as I can master the secret of the box of bliss, who cares about the Tsuchikage? I should be the master of this world. Hey. Just as he was feeling proud, a pigeon fell at his feet. The second time today? I should have told him not to contact me frequently, right? Black Rock's eyes were gloomy as he picked up the small paper tube. I hope it's important news, otherwise, huh? Just a glance, Black Rock's eyes widened. Damn. He dares. No wonder he told me this today. Was it to test me? Black Rock's eyes were uncertain, as if he had made a great decision. Don't blame me, I can't go back. The next day, early morning. Garashi, who had just finished his morning practice, stood in front of the mirror and said to himself, this plan, in addition to making Yamanaka-sensei pay more attention to my opinion, so as to pave the way for future actions, this experience is also essential. But before that, I must seal the most critical part of the memory. As for the key to unseal it, let's set it as Woodleaf's perception enchantment. Thinking of this, Garashi no longer hesitated, his hands formed a seal and finally pressed on his eyebrows. Outside the finance minister's mansion. Yangdo-sama, call me Black Light. Remember, my current identity is the deputy warden of Jioden. Yes, Black Light-sama. Wuwei changed his address and asked, but didn't you say yesterday that you don't need to care about them? Yangdo's face turned red and he shouted, I didn't say that, you must have remembered it wrong. Without waiting for Wuwei to answer, he guiltily turned his head. Don't waste time, let's go in. Yes. The two walked in, pretended to talk with Ueno Shin, and then were led to the room of Garashi and others. Yamanaka-sensei. Wu-wei greeted from a distance. Wu-wei, you are? Yamanaka Inoichi asked doubtfully. This is our deputy warden of Jiaden, Black Light Sama. Wu-wei first introduced and then invited. We came here today to ask Yamanaka-sensei to go to Jiaden. Jiaden? What are we going to do there? Asma asked in a timely manner. Let me explain, Yizichin said. Yang Do's face looked bitter. Oh, the situation in Jiaden is too difficult, whether it's manpower or equipment, it's almost impossible to support. But our words carry little weight and no one will care about what we say, so we want to ask a few wood-leaf ninjas to be witnesses and tell Naruto-sama what they see. Yamanaka Inoichi frowned and seemed hesitant. Kurenai bit her lip and said pitifully, Yamanaka-sensei, why don't you help Wu-wei-sensei? Asma patted his chest and said, Yamanaka-sensei, don't worry. If the old man blames you for delay in returning to the village, you can put the blame on me. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled bitterly. Well, but let's say in advance at most we will stay for another day. Naruto's son can influence the decision of a jonin, Woodleaf's power is really corrupt. Yang Do despised in his heart, but his face was grateful. Thank you so much, I will do my best to entertain you. It's just that this reception may not be the same as what you think, hee. Yang Do quickly lowered his head, worried that the other party would see his smile. On the side, looking at the secretly proud Yang Do, Wu-wei felt a burst of sympathy. Sure enough, it's the same as last time, only you don't know that you are the one being played. Wait, it seems wrong. Last time it was the 4 of them who played me, but this time, it's the 5 of us who played him. Moreover, Black Rock may be thinking about how to kill him now. Thinking of this, Wu-wei only felt that the word miserable was written all over Yang Do's body, and he couldn't bear to look directly at it. Chapter 88. In the gloomy and treacherous fog, a high city loomed. Haha, it's really rude to let several distinguished guests come to such a place. Yang Do stood on the deck and looked at Garashi and others apologetically. Hey, we just came here once and it's so uncomfortable. It's hard to imagine how you usually come here. Yamanaka Inoichi also followed the act. It's not easy for everyone. Yang Do shook his head with emotion and then invited, then let's go in now. Entering the gate of the Ghost Lantern City, Black Rock was already waiting. Let me introduce you, this is our Ghost Lantern City's Lord, Black Rock Sama. Yang Do said while winking at Black Rock. But Black Rock just ignored it and enthusiastically pulled Yamanaka Inoichi. I'm so happy that you can come. Everyone go and sit down first, I'll arrange the banquet. Yamanaka Inoichi declined. No, Black Rock Sama, you're too polite. Black Rock said with a straight face. You're not giving me face. Although our Ghost Lantern City is remote, we're not people who don't know etiquette. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled bitterly. In that case, thank you for your hospitality. Seeing this, Black Rock smiled with satisfaction. That's right. Wu-wei, take the guests to sit down first, Black Light and I will prepare the ingredients. Yes. When they left, Yang Do asked puzzledly, Black Rock Sama, why didn't you do it directly? Black Rock shook his head and smiled. When you should be steady, you're not steady. Yamanaka Inoichi is a jonin. If you push him too hard, it will cause us a lot of losses. After all, it's not easy to catch them alive. Yang Do instantly woke up. Yes, we're here to catch people. It's harder to catch them alive than to kill them. Black Rock said with a smile. So, we have to wait patiently for an opportunity. Opportunity? Yang Do's eyes lit up. Black Rock Sama, are you going to poison the banquet? But halfway through he frowned again. That Yamanaka Inoichi is a jonin. He should be familiar with all kinds of poisons. It's hard to just poison him, right? Black Rock calmly asked, have you forgotten how Ghost Light City got its name? Yang Do suddenly realized, Gui Dang. It's the ghost lanterns that grow all around the island. Black Rock nodded slightly. This ghost lantern is a specialty of the island. It's impossible for him to recognize it. Moreover, ordinary ghost lanterns won't cause any problems after eating them, but the white variant will cause paralysis all over. Yang Do clapped his hands and smiled. We can eat the regular ghost lantern first to make them less vigilant. Then we can grind the white mutants and hide them in the regular ghost lantern. When the drugs take effect, they will be at our mercy. Black Rock laughed as well. Furthermore, ghost lantern isn't poison. It'll be even harder for them to discover it. At this point the two looked at each other and smiled. An hour later in the spacious hall. All kinds of sweet and delicious food filled the table. At a glance it was enough to make people hungry. Distinguished guests, this is a banquet held to thank you, so please don't be shy. Black Rock sat in the main seat and said enthusiastically. Really? Then I'm going to start eating. Asuma shouted and began to eat heartily. What a forthright guest. Let's eat. Jianghu said with a smile and started to eat. Seeing this, the people at the table no longer hesitated and joined the ranks of the battle. Is it finally going to start? Black Rock was almost trembling with excitement, but he still restrained himself. No, it's not the time to be happy yet. We can't let them find out the problem. If there is, we can use conversation to divert their attention. Thinking of this, Black Rock suddenly said with a smile. Have you heard? The Kazekage of San Crypsis village may be dead. Puff. Everyone at the table spat out a mouthful of saliva. Jianghu was even more confused. Why did Black Rock Senpai suddenly let himself go? Yamanaka and Noichi couldn't help but ask, Castellan, is this news accurate? Black Rock smiled. It's not clear whether he's dead or not, but the disappearance has basically been confirmed. Let's continue eating. Everyone ate the food with a heavy heart, inexplicably feeling that a storm was coming. Black Rock said with a smile, there are not many people in the shinobi world who have the ability to kill or kidnap the Kazekage. San Crypsis will most likely suspect the Kages of various villages, and the closest villages to San Crypsis village are Woodleaf and Rock Crypsis. Ahem. Jianghu coughed twice and reminded, Castellan, we are weak. Let's not talk about this kind of thing, okay? Black Rock laughed and said, it's my fault. Everyone continued to eat. At this moment, Asuma's eyes suddenly widened, and his hands and feet twitched as he fell down. What happened to me? Asuma, you. Before he could finish his sentence, Rinse and Red fell to the ground one after another. No, it's poisonous. Yamanaka Inoichi was a jonin, and he barely held on for a moment, looking at Black Rock and others angrily. Who the hell are you? Why did you do this? Seeing his angry look, the other ninjas on the table laughed. Idiot, of course we're Rock Crypsis people. Hey, I didn't expect that even Naruto's son fell into our hands. Woodleaf's ninjas are really useless, we just used a trick. But before they could finish their words, their legs twitched and they fell to the ground. What's going on? I know, the person who drugged them must have mixed them up and made all the berries mutant. Damn, is there anyone who didn't get poisoned? Of course I'm fine. Black Rock chuckled and stood up. A Rock Crypsis Chunin shouted excitedly, Great, Black Rock-sama, hurry up and solve it for us. Boom. The Chunin who spoke was kicked out by his foot. Seeing this scene, the Rock Crypsis couldn't believe it. Black Rock-sama, what are you doing? Black Rock sighed deeply. Are you all idiots? At this time you don't think I'm on your side, do you? Their last fantasy was ruthlessly broken, and the Rock Crypsis were all angry. You bastard, how dare you betray Rock Crypsis? Damn it, what did the village do to you? Jianghu pointed at him with a trembling finger. Are you from San Crypsis, Yunin, or Kirin? I'm not from any side, I only belong to myself. Black Rock laughed wildly. Wue, get up, go seal their chakra as the last sacrifice for the box of bliss. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.